Hi, welcome back guys. This is your sensei, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Minato Saw Naruto's Life. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Minato Namikaze stood quietly as he looked through the photo album, reflecting on the peaceful times captured in the smiling faces of his younger self. The ongoing war made life difficult for every village, casting a shadow over their memories. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Minato felt a deep gratitude for one particular thing. The woman standing beside him, his fiancée, was the light in his life. As he turned the page of the album, he was reminded once again of her beauty. One photo stood out, a red-haired girl and a blonde boy, holding hands and smiling brightly at the camera. Kushina was everything he had ever wanted and more. She was clever, strong, and ambitious, sharing his dream of becoming Hokage. Though it sounded a bit cheesy every time he reminded her of this, they both knew that only one of them would achieve that dream. Their relationship had blossomed since they were young chunin. He had saved her one fateful night in the forest, and from that moment on, they were inseparable. Their love for each other was undeniable, and they dreamed of a future together, hoping to marry and settle down once the war ended. As he turned another page, a photo of his team from their first day together brought a smile to his face. He felt immense pride for them. They had worked hard to reach their current status. They were like family to him, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Kushina leaned closer to Minato to catch a glimpse of the photo, her smile widening as she saw his expression of pride. She knew how much he valued his team, and she felt proud too. "You know, Kakashi is improving a lot," she remarked, continuing to mend a torn piece of fabric. "Yeah, you're right. For his age, he's doing great," Minato replied, flipping to the next page. "And Rin is doing well too. They're really becoming a solid team." Minato chuckled softly, knowing she would never admit it if asked. She was too stubborn for her own good, often being tougher on Obito than the others. The two of them always seemed to clash whenever they were in the same room. "Don't forget about Obito," he reminded her. At this, Kushina paused her sewing and closed her eyes. "He's just a bragging little show-off. He trips over himself, can't throw a shuriken straight, and his jutsu needs a lot of work." True, Obito has his flaws. But his bright and outgoing attitude is important. He brings everyone on the team closer together, and that's a fact, Minato countered. Kushina smiled at his words. "But you already know that. I mean, he's your favorite, isn't he?" Minato teased, grinning at her. She smiled back and stood up, handing him his jacket before walking toward the window. The village was peaceful under the night sky, with everyone cherishing moments at home or strolling through the streets. For shinobi, however, it was a different story. Many were out there, fighting for their village, their families, and their friends. Once again, Kushina was reminded of the sobering truth that her fiancé was a shinobi, a powerful Konoha ninja destined to become Hokage. His time with her was limited, and she hoped that every time she came to the gate to welcome him home, he would be there, waiting for her. "By the way, do you know when your next assignment will be decided?" she asked, gripping the soft curtains. "Yes, I should find out for sure in a few days, but I think it will be at Canopy Bridge," he replied. Minato could sense Kushina's anxiety. He knew she worried for him whenever he was out fighting. That was why he insisted she stay behind, where it was safe. At first, she had resisted, wanting to fight alongside him for their village. But eventually, she understood that he shared her fears. So she chose to remain at home, trusting him to protect their village as the yellow flash of the leaf. "I hope the war ends soon," she said softly. Minato stood and walked toward her, and they stood together in silence, watching the lights in the neighborhood turn off one by one. "By the way, why do you admire Obito so much?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Because he's part of my dream," she replied, turning to face him. "Dream?" he asked, puzzled. "One day, if we have a child, I want that child to be bright and forthright, growing up just like Obito. Our child doesn't have to be the smartest. They can even be a bit cocky," Kushina said with a chuckle, enjoying Minato's confused expression. "I want our child to value friendship and have a cheerful spirit. With a will that can't be broken." Minato smiled at her. Yeah, you're right, he said as he kissed her forehead, making her blush. Our child will be the best, you know why? Minato asked her. Kushina only shrugged in reply. Because he will be the child of the yellow flash and the red-hot habanero. Kushina chuckled at that. He will become something more than that, a voice said from behind them. Kushina and Minato jumped and turned around. There stood a hooded figure staring at them. Before they could react, the enemy raised his hand and made the ram sign. In an instant, they vanished from the room and the hooded figure slipped out through the window. We'll see. Your child is destined for much greater things. Minato and Kushina found themselves in a different room, one that felt unfamiliar. Minato quickly helped Kushina to her feet as she felt a bit dizzy from the sudden shift. He recognized that sensation. It reminded him of the first time he used the Flying Thunder God technique. Kushina looked around, trying to get her bearings. Where are we? She wondered aloud, staying close to Minato as they ventured further into the room. It appeared quite empty, but as they moved deeper, they noticed 3 figures approaching them. Sensei, one of the figures called out, running toward them. It was none other than Kakashi, Rin, and Obito. What are you guys doing here? Minato asked, scanning for any signs of injury on his students. We just finished grabbing a little treat from Ichiraku when a stranger snuck up on us, and now we're here, Obito shrugged. Kushina and Minato exchanged glances. This was strange. Who was this person, and why had they targeted them? Was it an enemy? Did they discover that Kushina was the Jinchuriki? But if that were the case, why were Minato and the others here? Same thing happened to us. We need to find a way out of here, Kushina said, searching for any kind of door. But there were none. It felt like they were in a vast space with no walls, doors, or windows. The only thing in the room was a large screen standing in front of them. Someone's coming this way, Rin said, pointing behind her sensei. Behind them stood none other than Jiraiya, holding a sake bottle. He looked rather confused and possibly tipsy. What a sake this is, he mumbled, examining the bottle. Master Jiraiya? Minato exclaimed, shocked to see him in this state. This is great. Minato sighed as he approached the inebriated man, who was now sitting on the ground, trying to decipher the label. Kushina would have laughed if it weren't for the seriousness of their situation. Now Jiraiya was here too? What was the enemy plotting? Why them? She glanced at the trio, who seemed to finally grasp what had happened to them. Rin and Obito looked concerned, while Kakashi appeared to have the situation under control. Kushina felt a wave of worry wash over her. She could see on their faces that they weren't prepared for a confrontation, and yet, that was what they were about to face in a few days. Kushina-san, are you all right? Rin asked, stepping closer. Kushina realized she had been staring and quickly shifted her gaze. I'm fine. I was just thinking, she replied with a faint smile. As Minato was about to help Jiraiya stand, a figure suddenly fell from above, landing on Jiraiya. Tsunade-sama? Minato asked, confused as the figure began to move. Tsunade looked down and saw Jiraiya grinning at her. She immediately jumped off him and kicked him away. Minato chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Of course, Tsunade would fall onto the drunk Master Jiraiya. You pervert! Tsunade yelled, dusting off her shirt. Where are we? She asked, noticing the others staring at her. We have no idea, Kushina answered truthfully as she walked with the others toward her. There is no exit, Tsunade said, surveying the area. This might be problematic. She took a deep breath and punched the ground, but to her surprise, her hand hurt instead of the floor. It didn't crack or show any damage. No chakra, no nothing. What? Tsunade exclaimed, her eyes wide. We can't use our chakra here for some reason. Everything around us seems unbreakable and there is no exit. We might as well be inside someone's mind or in another dimension. Minato stated the facts as he tried to help Jiraiya again. Aw man. So what do we do then? Wait until something happens? Obito asked, sitting down on the ground. For the first time, I think I'm agreeing with you. There's literally nothing to do but wait, Kakashi sighed, sitting next to Obito. Well, Judging by the fact we have no options left, just like Obito said, we should wait until something happens, Minato said, rubbing his chin. Kushina moved to his side and placed her hand on his shoulder, reminding him that he wasn't alone in this situation and that others were willing to help. And so, they waited for what felt like hours. Nothing much happened except for Jiraiya, who started to hallucinate from the alcohol, providing some entertainment for the others. Most of them were now bored out of their minds. That was until one last figure fell from nowhere, landing next to them. They didn't even need to look at the person's face, they already knew who it was. Uncle Fugaku? Obito stood up and ran to him. Where are we? Fugaku demanded, looking around. Everyone shrugged in response. We don't know. We've been here for a while now, Tsunade answered, examining her nails. A while? And you didn't try to escape or something? Who is the enemy anyway? Why did he bring us here? Fugaku asked, his tone laced with anger and annoyance. We tried everything, Fugaku. There is no way out of here. I should probably add that chakra doesn't work here either, Minato said. Why would the enemy gather Team 7, a fresh team just out of their academy, 2 of the legendary Sannin, the Yellow Flash, a Jinchuriki, and the head of the Uchiha clan in one place? What was their plan? Why did it have to involve them out of everyone? We're all here? Good. A familiar voice spoke. Everyone turned to see the hooded figure who had transported them. Instinctively, they grabbed the nearest weapons and aimed them at him. The figure raised his hands in a gesture of peace. There is no reason for us to fight. I am a friend, he said. Friend? You broke into our homes and kidnapped us. Kushina scoffed. I know I may seem like just a mere kidnapper to you all right now, but believe me when I tell you that I come in peace. Minato was the first to test the waters. He threw a kunai at the figure, who caught it effortlessly between his fingers. He caught Sensei's kunai? Is that even possible? Obito asked, panic creeping into his voice. I'm empathizing with you all since you are in a time of war. But believe me when I say, I'm no enemy. There is a reason why I have gathered all of you here today. Fugaku furrowed his brows. You say we are in a time of war, but aren't you as well? He asked the figure, who now looked at him. Just as expected. The Uchiha are very observant of the small details, the person replied with a nod. I am not, the figure said, causing some gasps among the group. But every village is involved in this war. Rin exclaimed. I'm not from here. I'm far away from home, and unfortunately, once I arrived, there is no turning back until I finish my mission. So you are a ninja, Minato commented. The figure pulled a headband from beneath his hood. The Konoha village? Kakashi asked, surprised as he was the first to notice the symbol. You are a Konoha shinobi, yet we have no idea who you are, Fugaku said. You can't possibly know who I am since I'm not from here, the hooded stranger replied. So you're lying then. You are no Konoha shinobi, Kakashi remarked. Let me rephrase that. I am not from this timeline. What? Impossible. Obito yelled. A time traveler? Are we supposed to believe that? Tsunade scoffed. So if you are a time traveler, why us? Why did you gather us here? Minato asked. During my time, Konoha is just a ruin, the hooded man began to explain, making some of the people gasp. They had every right to be shocked. Konoha was a strong village. None of them could imagine it as a ruin. The enemy was strong. They came out of nowhere and caused so much damage. The Hokage at that time died fighting them, but he paused, clenching his fist. It was clear he was still mourning. He was killed trying to protect everyone in the village. But he died in vain. I was the only survivor. I watched my entire family fall one by one, which drove me to perform one of the forbidden jutsus. This is why you are all. You are here to change that future. You are here to save countless lives that will be lost. You are here to create your own fate, the stranger finished, leaving most of the crowd stunned. It was a lot to absorb in such a short time, and it was hard to believe a stranger, whose face they couldn't see, about the destruction of their village. Everyone had mixed feelings about the situation. They were considering going along with the stranger's plan, but doubts lingered. They still questioned whether this stranger was truly an ally. He didn't want to show his face, making it difficult for them to trust him completely. But if what he said was true, then their village was under a significant threat. What they did not know was how long it would be until that threat arrived. If what you say is true, Minato spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. But then why didn't you just inform the Hokage about the attack? But we have no power over what happens in this village. The black figure nodded. Minato's thought was straightforward. Why them? Why not the Hokage? Although Lord Sandaime was getting older, he was still strong. The stories, the memories I'm about to show you have nothing to do with the current Hokage. If you succeed in altering even one unfortunate fate, I believe it will be enough to change the future completely. Rin exchanged anxious glances with Obito and Kakashi. They were just chunins, and with Kakashi becoming a jonin soon, they still lacked the experience to think this through. The adults began whispering among themselves. This was an opportunity that didn't come every day. Just as he had said at the beginning, they had no choice but to watch and trust this stranger. All right then, Kushina said loudly. We agree to your terms. Tsunade nodded in agreement. The tension in the room began to fade, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. Though they could not see the man's face, it was clear he was pleased with their choice. Very well then. What I am about to show you are the events that happened in my timeline. I hope you will do everything in your power to alter this future as much as possible. I still think this guy is sketchy though. Obito mumbled as he sat down with the others. The young team settled next to their sensei, who was beside Kushina. Tsunade pulled Jiraiya next to her to keep him from bothering anyone with his comments, and Fugaku sat down next to Kushina. Once they were all a bit more comfortable, the stranger began to speak again. Just remember, it hasn't happened yet. You still have time to change that, he said. Man, I hope I'm Hokage in the future, Obito dreamed. Rin laughed awkwardly, while Kakashi rolled his eyes in annoyance. In reality, they were all excited to see what their future held. Most of them hoped for the best, but they all knew they should probably expect the worst given the circumstances. Bring it on! Kushina exclaimed excitedly. Well then, we should start with the main problem The hooded man said, pointing his finger at Obito. Obito and the others were taken aback. How could Obito be the main problem? What could he do anyway? He was clumsy, a bit of a fool, and his jutsu needed significant improvement. And me? Obito stuttered, prompting Kakashi to chuckle. Hey! Stop that! Obito shouted at his teammate, feeling a bit embarrassed. Minato, protective of his students, spoke up. Obito is indeed a good student of mine. However, I cannot see anything that could make him a main problem for the future. Yeah. He's the most loyal and straightforward person I've ever met. I can't imagine Obito being a problem for anything. Kushina defended him, leaving Obito momentarily stunned. She had never praised him before. She was usually quite tough on him. Was this the reason why? Jiraiya was starting to regain his composure and looked around. Arg, this is the last time I drink something. Look at this. I'm hallucinating again, he complained. Tsunade had to restrain herself from punching him once more that night. You are not hallucinating, sensei, Minato replied. What? Where are we then? Ow, my head. Jiraiya attempted to stand but stumbled. Some sort of dimension. We cannot get out unless we watch our future, Tsunade explained quickly, her annoyance growing with each passing moment. What? Really? That's awesome. Count me in. Jiraiya laughed. Well, that was much easier than expected, Minato thought. Alright. Yes indeed, Obito is a good person with an almost unbreakable will. But Kakashi, have you ever thought of his strengths rather than his flaws? You'd be surprised. Kakashi let out a small grunt and looked away. The stranger then continued. Well then, I guess we should start with your next assignment. I'm guessing you already know where it's going to be, isn't that right, Minato? Minato nodded slightly. Yes, he had an idea of where it would be. Canopy Bridge, the path to Iwagakure's supply line, or so the rumor went. You do, sensei? Rin asked, a mix of curiosity and nervousness in her voice. They all knew that once Kakashi became a jonin, they would be on their own. The thought frightened Rin. She sometimes scolded herself for her worries. Kakashi was a strong shinobi. He had even managed to hit their sensei on their first day of training, which was no small feat, but still, she worried for her team. What would happen to them after their sensei left? I heard rumors. Minato murmured, his gaze fixed on the strange shinobi in front of them. Canopy Bridge. Is that correct? He asked. The hooded figure nodded in response. Iwagakure's supply line. I've heard the rumors as well, Fugaku said quietly. But if you are given the mission to go there, the Hokage must think the best way to cut off the supplies is by destroying that bridge, he mused aloud. Rin wasn't the only one feeling anxious now. They all began to remember the stranger's words. Obito. What could he do? The only thought that crossed their minds was the fear of failing this mission. If they were to fail, all those who had died on that bridge would have perished in vain. All right then. Let us not waste any more time. We shall begin our first memory. With that, the previous black screen turned white. Give it your worst, Obito said, determination in his voice. Rin poked Obito's side, causing him to lose focus. He immediately turned to her, trying to hide his embarrassment. Obito, I don't think that's the best thing to say given what we're about to see. Rin mumbled. Rin is right, you know? We should all just stay positive about this. Maybe it isn't as bad as we think. Kushina added just before the video started. Everyone fell silent as the white screen began to display the first scene. The third Hokage sat in his office, discussing the war with the village elders, reviewing the casualties and events that had unfolded over the past week. So far, the Fire Country had suffered significant losses, but it had also gained valuable information. Today, the village had finally pinpointed the location where Iwagakure was transporting their supplies. This was crucial information for Konoha. If they could destroy that supply line, victory in battle would be within reach. From the positions of the enemy's backup, we've determined that it would be vital to take these points, Hamura said, indicating the locations on the map in front of the three elders. The Canopy Bridge, huh? Lord Sandai murmured, studying the map. We need to devise a plan to destroy it immediately, Koharu commented. Who are they anyway? Obito asked Rin quietly. Rin gasped, causing Minato to glance at his students. Obito, how could you not know who these people are? Rin scolded her teammate. Obito shrugged in response. I've never seen them, he defended himself, trying to maintain his pride. They are the village elders, you idiot. They are part of the council, Kakashi said, annoyance creeping into his voice. Minato sighed at his team. They weren't even 2 minutes into it, and they were already bickering. Right now, many battles are being waged, so there are only a select few to choose from, the Hokage stated, reviewing the data book of all the ninjas of Konoha. The elders nodded in agreement. For this mission, we'll appoint the four-man cell of Jonin Namikaze Minato, Hatake Kakashi, Uchiha Obito, and Noara Rin. The elders didn't seem entirely pleased with that choice. It wasn't that they doubted their strength, but the recent losses had made them more cautious. They didn't want to lose another good set of shinobi during this war. They're all quite young, aren't they? Even that Minato. Hamura began, but was cut off by Koho, who spoke up before he could finish. Well, due to the situation, our hands are tied. So, I'm guessing most of the ninjas left the battlefield at that point, Fugaku said, prompting everyone to glance at him before returning their focus to the screen. The scenery shifted to a forest. Obito sprinted through the trees, leaping gracefully and dodging rocks as he made his way to his destination. Everyone watched the future version of Obito, who looked remarkably similar to the one beside them. Obito's excitement bubbled over as he poked Rin and his sensei, eagerly pointing at himself and nearly letting out a few sounds of joy. Kakashi rolled his eyes at his teammates' enthusiasm, unable to understand why Obito was so thrilled to see himself. It felt like there were two Obitos now, and even though the future Obito wasn't physically present, his mere existence was starting to annoy Kakashi. This is bad. I'll be in trouble at this rate, Obito thought, pushing himself to run even faster. Most of the onlookers began to speculate about what could have happened for Obito to feel that way, while the rest of his team started to grasp why he might be panicking. Most likely he was running late. Will I make it? With a fleeting glance at his surroundings, Obito tripped over a vine lying on the branch he had just jumped on. He landed face first, letting out a small hiss. A figure stepped in front of him, and Obito shot his head up, hopeful. Did I make it? He asked. The figure revealed himself to be none other than Kakashi. Nope. You're awfully late as always, Kakashi replied, still standing over his teammate who remained on the ground. Seems like you're always late, huh, Obito? Jiraiya teased. Since when are you aware of your surroundings? Obito exclaimed, pointing at the Sannin in a futile attempt to defend his dwindling pride. Kushina chuckled at the two, while Minato began to regret his decision to sit where he was. Shut the heck up, you two! Tsunade yelled, causing Obito and Jiraiya to cease their playful banter and sit quietly. Fugaku and Kakashi shared Tsunade's sentiment, nodding in agreement. Kakashi knelt in front of Obito, who cringed slightly at his presence and the comment he was about to make. When did you think we were supposed to meet up? Following the rules is common sense for a full-fledged ninja, right? Behind Kakashi, Rin admired the sky but quickly turned her attention to her teammates, who seemed just a few comments away from starting another argument. On a nearby boulder sat the yellow Flash himself, who didn't bother to intervene. No, you see, while coming here, I had to help an elderly lady with too much luggage cross the street. And something's in my eye, Obito said, rubbing his eye as it began to sting. He removed his goggles and reached for his eye drops. Why do you always have to use that excuse? It's obvious you're lying, Kakashi snorted, earning a not-so-friendly glare from Obito. I don't lie, Kakashi. For your information, I always help old people on my way to training, Obito replied, crossing his arms defiantly. Which, most of the time, means you're already late for training or missions. Isn't that right? Kakashi's smirk was evident, even if Obito couldn't see his entire face. Obito let out a small snort and turned his gaze back to the screen, choosing not to respond. Yeah, right. That's a lie, isn't it? Future Kakashi asked as Obito applied his eye drops. Minato closed his eyes, chuckling at Kakashi's comments. Don't say that, Kakashi. You helped the elderly lady, didn't you, Obito? Minato smiled at his student. I even carried her luggage. Obito replied proudly. Kakashi placed his hands on his hips and looked back at Minato. Sensei, you're too easy on him. If he keeps acting like this, people will get into trouble. Those who break the rules are often seen as troublemakers, right? Oh wow. You really are into all the rules and regulations for just a kid, Jiraiya remarked, but Kakashi didn't even glance back at him. Minato laughed awkwardly, brushing the comment aside. Can't you ever be nice sometimes? Obito said, rubbing his eyes. You're always about these rules and laws, and it's getting annoying. What matters is DSPLN. He finished, looking away from Kakashi. Rin and Minato exchanged empathetic smiles. Now, stop fighting. You're on the same team, you know? Rin, that's never going to work. Kushina shook her head with Tsunade nodding in agreement. You have to be strict and straightforward. If they don't listen to your warning, make them see sense with your own hands, Tsunade continued, causing the other guys to gulp nervously. Rin let out a nervous chuckle and turned her attention back to the screen. You aren't going to become violent, are you? Obito asked quietly, but Rin didn't reply, making him more anxious. Rin, you're too soft on him. See what I mean? Kushina continued to shake her head. Words just don't work. Kakashi, you're not exactly helping, Obito hissed at his teammate. I didn't even say anything, Kakashi hissed back. Your future self did. Today is a very special day for me, Kakashi continued, leaving Obito confused on the ground. Why, yeah, that's right. Why is that again? Obito mumbled to himself. Really, Obito? We discussed this. Rin scolded, playfully hitting his shoulder. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Obito apologized, rubbing the sore spot. The team began to walk toward the border. Minato was the only one fully informed about the mission, so he still had to explain most of it to his students. Starting today, Kakashi is a jounin, just like me. To make this mission more efficient, We're going to split into 2 teams since Konoha's military power has reached an all-time low. Split up? Then. Obito thought aloud. Minato glanced back at his student and smiled faintly. Yeah, that's right. With Kakashi as the captain, you'll form a 3-man cell, and I'll go alone. Obito slowly began to recall their conversation from last week about this. Kakashi was promoted to Jounin today, leaving him and Rin as the only Chunin in the group. Didn't we talk about this before, Obito? Did you get a present for Kakashi? Rin asked. At that moment, Obito felt his heart sink. He had completely forgotten. It wasn't that he didn't want to give his teammate a gift for his well-deserved promotion, he just lost track of time. Sorry, I wasn't listening, Obito mumbled, avoiding Kakashi's gaze. So much for the element of surprise. Minato sighed, realizing their plan to surprise Kakashi was now out in the open. Well, I suppose I should thank you for at least thinking of getting me a present. Although, it really wasn't necessary, Kakashi said, making Minato and Rin smile. Obito merely scoffed. Who did Kakashi think he was? At least it doesn't show us what presents you were thinking of giving him. Kushina smiled at her fiancé. Yeah, you're right. This is from me. It's a custom-made kunai, Minato said, pulling the kunai from his backpack. Jiraiya burst out laughing, and Tsunade joined in. What were you saying, Kushina? Jiraiya wiped a tear from his eye. Is it even vital to show this? Minato asked, a little annoyed that his surprise was ruined. The hooded man only nodded, prompting Minato to sigh again. It's a little heavy, and the shape is kind of irregular, but once you get used to it, it's really easy to use, Minato explained before handing the kunai to Kakashi, who thanked him. Rin was next. This is from me. Here, she said, handing him her present. It's a special medical pack for personal use. It's been improved, so it's very easy to use. Rin smiled at him. Thank you. Then, only Obito was left. Heh, what are you looking for? I didn't get you anything, Obito said, feigning annoyance at Kakashi's attitude. Well, whatever. It's not like you'd give me anything decent anyway. Anything you would have brought would just become useless luggage, Kakashi shot back. That was a bit harsh, Kushina said, glancing between Obito and Kakashi. Useless luggage. Obito huffed, moving closer to his sensei. How the heck you ever became a Jounin, I'll never know. Obito continued. Is this what you have to deal with every single day? Tsunade asked Minato, who chuckled awkwardly in response. Say, the brat is now a Jounin. Congratulations, Kakashi. That's a great achievement for a shinobi, you know. Jiraiya smiled at him. Kakashi looked at Jiraiya and offered a small thanks, leaving Jiraiya slightly annoyed. Dinin brat, he muttered under his breath. You're the one to talk, Kakashi replied, further irritating Obito. I am Uchiha Obito of the Uchiha clan. One day, I'm going to surpass you once I awaken my Sharingan. Obito declared proudly. I thought the Uchiha were supposed to be elite. I guess they expected too much of you when they entrusted you with a title like that. What? Obito yelled, stepping closer to Kakashi. They hadn't even crossed the border, and already they were at each other's throats. Rin stepped in between them, stopping what would have been an unnecessary argument. Obito and Kakashi refused to apologize to one another, not even wanting to look at each other. Rin was getting frustrated with them for once. They were always like this. Why couldn't they just act like a team for once? Okay, can I explain the mission now? We almost crossed the border. With that, everyone's attention turned to their sensei. The team stopped under a tree. Minato pulled out his map and placed it on a boulder in front of them. Got it? It's this line. Right now, the hidden stone is invading the hidden grass village. The enemy consists of hidden stone shinobi, and we have information that they have over 1,000 ninja at the front line already, Minato explained, pointing to the locations on the map. Over 1,000? Kushina gasped along with the others. They're advancing a lot faster than before, Obito commented. The hidden leaf also borders the hidden grass, so if we wait, it will be too late, Kakashi said, examining the situation. This is already getting intense, Jiraiya said, straightening himself up. Based on the way they're advancing, their backup must be pretty smooth as well, right? Rin added. Well, our mission this time is here. Canopy Bridge. Minato pointed to the location. In order to strike back at the enemy, we need a lot of manpower. To do this, we, the few select ninja, are going to sabotage them. The bridge. So, this is a sneaking mission? Kakashi asked. Team Kakashi, your mission is to infiltrate the enemy's back line and blow up the bridge they're using for supplies before withdrawing. Just as I suspected, Fugaku nodded at the screen. Seems rather easy if you say it like that, Minato, Tsunade said, looking towards him. Well, no one said it would be easy, Kushina murmured. Yes, sir, the young shinobi replied. What about you, sensei? Obito asked, a little concerned. I'll engage the enemy's front lines to divert them away. From you guys? This is Kakashi's first mission as captain, so we'll go together to the border, but once we're there, we'll split up and begin our mission. Kushina's hand gripped Minato's in a sign of concern. Minato placed his other hand on top of hers, smiling reassuringly. The team placed their hands on top of Minato's. Yes, sir. The team walked quietly through the forest, remaining alert the entire time. They knew that once they entered the forest, they would likely encounter the enemy at some point. Suddenly, Kakashi stopped, causing the entire team to halt. He sensed someone. Kakashi smirked to himself, while Obito pouted. The enemy maybe? Jiraiya thought as he examined the screen. Since neither of them could sense an unknown threat, they realized someone was following them. Nice, Kakashi, Minato thought, smiling at his student. He was genuinely proud of him at this moment. As confirmation of their suspicions, most of the jounin in the room wore smiles. Since this was Kakashi's first mission as jounin, it was good to see him acting like one. They actually noticed me? These guys are good, the Wagakure shinobi thought, his eyes widening when he spotted Minato. That guy. No, it can't be. Either way, I'll just wait and see. Is he alone? Yeah, most likely. Minato thought as he pressed his finger to the ground. He sensed more than one presence lurking in the trees above them. However, they felt different from the first one. Probably shadow clones. They seem rather informed about you, don't they, Minato? Fugaku asked, glaring at him. Minato's last mission for the war had likely made a significant impact in Iwagakure. He was a strong and respected shinobi, even Fugaku could agree with that. Most likely, they had been warned to stay away from certain individuals, and Minato was probably one of them. Everyone be careful. There are about 20 enemies. It's probably just a bunch of shadow clones, Minato said, scanning their surroundings. Seems like it. Sensei, I'll go first. Please cover me, Kakashi said, drawing the attention of the others. Minato frowned at that. True, Kakashi was the captain of this mission, but acting impulsively could lead to failure. He hoped that after all the training they had undergone, they would listen for once. Don't be too hasty, Kakashi. You should just be the backup, Minato sighed. Kakashi began forming hand signs. Oh, I'm actually going to use that, he thought, straightening up for a better view. Obito glared at him, confused by his sudden movement. Sensei, I'm the captain, right? Besides, now's an excellent time to try out my new jutsu I've been developing, Kakashi replied, his face illuminated by the lightning from his technique. How impressive! Such an amazing form of chakra! Jiraiya exclaimed. Say, Kakashi, did you create this jutsu on your own? Fugaku asked, making Kakashi smirk. Yes, he replied. Impressive. Fugaku nodded at him. Obito frowned at that. He had never managed to impress his uncle before. Stay away from me, the enemy thought as he observed Kakashi's jutsu. Chidori! Kakashi yelled out. His teammates watched in awe at his technique. What is this jutsu? Obito thought. Amazing chakra. Rin thought. Yes, it was impressive for Kakashi to perform this, but he was being too hasty. They should wait to assess the type of enemy they were dealing with, to gauge his strength and purpose. Minato placed his hand in front of Kakashi, stopping him from advancing directly toward the enemy. It doesn't matter how many enemies there are, this will end it in a flash. It's just like your nickname. Besides, It's like you said, Sensei. The leader of this mission is me. A team must follow the leader's orders, right, Sensei? Kakashi said. Kushina sighed and shook her head. Minato withdrew his hand in defeat. Although he knew the consequences of doing so, he put all his faith in Kakashi. The moment he pulled his hand away, Kakashi dashed directly toward the enemy. Such speed! Jiraiya gasped. Minato narrowed his eyes. The shadow clones jumped out of their hiding spots and threw their kunai and shurikens at Kakashi, who easily maneuvered through them with Minato's assistance. He's fast, the enemy thought. Minato threw a shuriken at the enemy, indicating their position for Kakashi, who immediately appeared in front of him. Once the jutsu made contact, the enemy turned out to be just a mere shadow clone. You still have much work to do on that jutsu, Kakashi, Minato sighed, drawing the attention of the others. Kakashi's eyes widened, he saw no problem with it. The team on the ground began to advance. As Rin and Minato searched for the enemy, Obito let his guard down while watching Kakashi. Suddenly, a shadow clone appeared in front of him, causing him to panic. Before the shadow clone could move, Minato threw his kunai at it, and it vanished. Don't let your guard down. Minato scolded Obito, who now had tears in his eyes. Weiss, he stuttered. Kakashi let out a snort, prompting Obito to glare at him once again. Stop that, he yelled. Stop what? Kakashi asked. You know exactly what. Obito said. Or what? You're going to start crying? Kakashi teased. Obito growled at him, but Rin intervened. Stop it, she warned. The shadow clones around them disappeared with a poof as time passed. Kakashi was indeed faster than usual. It was an incredible jutsu. Number 18. Kakashi declared as he charged toward the next enemy. Don't push your luck, brat. The Wagakure shinobi shouted, pulling out his sword. Minato was quick. He teleported to Kakashi immediately after the enemy yelled out, grabbing him and deflecting the sword in a split second. Unfortunately, he wasn't fast enough, and the blade grazed Kakashi's skin. You're as fast as they say, Minato, Tsunade acknowledged. Kakashi! Rin yelled as she saw Kakashi's arm. She knelt in front of him and immediately began administering first aid. Good job, Rin, Tsunade smiled at her. From the looks of it, the cut wasn't deep enough to hit a vital vein or cause significant muscle damage. However, it still needed to be patched up. I was finally about to counter that brat, but that blonde's movements were. The Iwagakure ninja began to feel fear. He finally started to understand who he was dealing with. Ahoha! Minato smirked, knowing what was about to happen next. He's been marked, Minato thought as he pulled his backpack off. Before it could even touch the ground, Minato had already teleported behind the enemy and placed his kunai around his neck. Do you even blink? Tsunade asked, making a few people in the room chuckle at the question. No way. Are you Konoha's Yellow Flash? Back in Iwagakure, our superiors told us to run away no matter what if we saw him. Now I understand what they meant by that, the ninja said before Minato swiftly incapacitated him. That's some kind of reputation you've got there, Minato, Jiraiya said, making Minato smile with confidence. He had worked hard for that. Minato jumped down from the tree back to his team. Rin was helping Kakashi with his injury while Obito stared at them. Kakashi's injury is pretty bad. For now, we should retreat and set up camp, Minato sighed. I'm fine, Kakashi insisted, not wanting to appear weak. No, you're not. Kushina yelled, making the young shinobis in the room jump a little. Kakashi looked away, finally starting to understand his sensei's words. What do you mean fine? You selfishly went against sensei's orders and did something reckless. Obito yelled at Kakashi. Obito nodded to himself, realizing he had just echoed the same thought. Well, after all, it is the same person. I don't have anything to say to an elite Uchiha who got a little too emotional, Kakashi replied with an annoyed look. Tsunade let out a small chuckle, while Jiraiya laughed heartily, causing Obito to blush in embarrassment. I had something in my eyes, so tears started coming out. Obito protested. Do you know the 25th shinobi rule? It states, a shinobi must never show his tears, Kakashi said. Now you're both going too far. Do you ever get along for once? Kushina crossed her arms. You're the one to talk. Obito muttered under his breath. Minato gulped, sensing the tension building between the two. What was that? Kushina asked slowly. Obito realized his mistake, gulped, and waved his hands in front of his face. Oh, nothing, he said quickly. Hey, you should stop, guys, Rin said as the argument escalated. Take it easy now, you two, Minato said sharply. Kakashi, it's true that rules and regulations are important, but that's not all there is to it. I've told you before, there are times when you have to adapt to the situation. Kakashi looked down, feeling defeated. Obito glanced at Kakashi, whose expression remained unreadable behind his mask. Among everyone in the room, Rin appeared the most anxious. She seemed to be the only one still aware of why they were watching this in the first place. She quickly looked at Obito, who also seemed worried. Perhaps she wasn't the only one concerned about their team. The thought that this might be their last mission together haunted her. You see, Obito exclaimed, pointing at Kakashi. Obito, you too. Minato called out. You're wearing goggles, so there's no way something got into your eyes. If you don't control your mouth, your mind will become just as weak, Minato said, leaving Obito in shock. Obito felt his face heat up at the screen. This was too much embarrassment for one night. Why were they even showing this? It felt unnecessary. Also, one more thing. Kakashi, you shouldn't use that jutsu again. You have the destructive force and speed for it, but when you're moving too fast, it's nearly impossible to see the enemy counter your attack. Therefore, it's an incomplete jutsu. Kakashi sighed at his sensei's words. He had worked hard to reach this point, but it seemed it still wasn't enough. Back to the drawing board, I guess. Kakashi sighed in defeat. Maybe next time I can help you with it? Minato smiled at him. Yeah, that would actually be really helpful. Before we leave, I'll say this once again. The most important thing for a shinobi is teamwork. With that, all three students looked down at the ground in shame. This was their first training after all. How could they have forgotten that? The young team finally understood the significance of what they were witnessing and why their sensei was so worked up. They had overlooked the most important lesson they had trained on for months. Once night arrived, Team 7 camped out in the forest, in an open field. The stars shone brightly, but the moon was hidden behind passing clouds. Minato was meditating while the rest of the team was already asleep. Obito was the only one still awake, unable to shake off Kakashi's attitude. Sensei, he finally decided to speak up. Minato turned around and looked at him with a faint smile. What is it, Obito? I know teamwork is important, but Kakashi always calls me a lazy idiot. Even though I'm considered elite for being born into the Uchiha clan, I feel like a loser. I acknowledge that Kakashi's an amazing person, but... Okay, this is definitely showing too much. Obito yelled at the screen. Just live with it, kid, Tsunade said. Kakashi is the son of the genius ninja Hatake Tsukumo, who was feared as the Konoha White Fang. In front of his father's legacy, even the title of legendary Sannin pales in comparison. Growing up with such a genius, he might view you guys as unsatisfactory, Minato explained to Obito, who listened intently. The White Fang. Come to think of it, I've heard his name before. He was a hero who died protecting the village. Kakashi never mentioned him before, Obito said quietly. He was a remarkable person, respected by everyone in the village, especially Kakashi. Until that incident occurred. I agree with Obito for once. This is showing too much unnecessary information, Kakashi said, making his teammates look at him in curiosity. He had never brought his father into the discussion. Was this the reason? The older ninjas in the room already understood the gravity of the situation. It was a tragic loss for Konoha. If only the villagers had seen it that way, perhaps Kakashi would have turned out differently. Incident? Obito asked. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this so freely, but since you're on the same team as Kakashi, I want you to know. What happened? Obito asked, concerned. Kakashi's father was disgraced before he took his own life. Obito's eyes widened at the news. He had never known. 5 years ago, he was the captain of a top-secret mission to infiltrate enemy territory, and he had to choose between two options: the success of the mission or the lives of his comrades. Kakashi closed his eyes, not wanting to see Obito's reaction upon learning the truth about his father. True, he didn't care what Obito thought of him, but it still hurt to know something like that. Of course, if he had followed the village's rules, he couldn't have aborted the mission. But to save the lives of his comrades, he chose to abandon it. However, because of that, Konoha suffered great losses, and his comrades in the village blamed him. In the end, even the comrades he saved turned against him. Driven by the hate and disgrace people felt towards him, he ultimately took his own life. Rin, who had covered her mouth with her hands, looked to her left at Kakashi, who refused to look at the screen. Obito remained silent. For once, he was beginning to understand Kakashi. His wide eyes briefly glanced at the white-haired boy, who was staring at his hands. What had he been through? From that point forward, Kakashi never spoke about his father, insisting that the rules should be followed above all else. Suddenly, everything became clear for Obito. His grudge against Kakashi had vanished. The only question that remained was why Kakashi wouldn't open up to them for once. Obito, even if only a little, try to understand him. Don't hold a grudge against him, Minato concluded. When that moment passed, Kakashi turned back to the screen. Kushina sighed. The story of the White Fang always left her with a heavy heart. He had been a dear friend to her and many others. It saddened her that he refused to acknowledge that not everyone hated him and that his life had ended tragically. The following morning was like any other. The team woke up early to reach their destination sooner. The birds were just beginning to stir as the sun greeted their sleepy faces. Rin was checking Kakashi's wound while the others prepared to leave. It should heal fine, but don't strain it too much, or it might reopen, Rin advised Kakashi, who nodded in response. Tsunade smiled at the screen. If she had to choose someone from the team, it would definitely be Rin. She reminded her of her younger self in some way. We should head out soon, Minato said. Yes, sir, the others replied. Once they crossed the border, it was time to part ways. The team was about to split into two, unaware that this decision would lead one of them to grave danger. From here on out, we'll split into two groups. Everyone do your best. It was only by chance that the enemy from yesterday was scouting alone. From now on, they'll be working in teams. Be careful, Minato warned. Well, let's go, Captain, Obito said suddenly, avoiding Kakashi's gaze. Now that's improvement. Kushina nodded at future Obito. For once, Kakashi glared at Obito, who appeared unfazed, as if he had anticipated this moment. Kakashi's eyes widened at Obito's words, while the others were taken aback by his sudden change in attitude. Minato smiled at Obito. As the team finally went their separate ways, the younger members felt more cautious than ever. They were on their own now, and they needed to be vigilant. Trying to remain quiet was no longer the issue. They all sensed they were being followed. A sudden attack halted their advance. Obito quickly used the fireball technique, a specialty of his clan, to shield the others from the sharp bamboo sticks hurled at them. Good job, Obito. I see you've been practicing that technique, Fugaku praised. Overwhelmed with emotions, Obito rubbed the back of his neck. Yes, I'm training hard for the next mission. Suddenly, an assailant hiding behind the bamboo lunged at Kakashi, who swiftly countered the attack. What none of them noticed during the chaos was that an almost invisible figure had snatched Rin and knocked her out just as she screamed, causing her teammates to look back in alarm. Minato gritted his teeth, helplessly watching as they took her away. He wasn't the only one struggling with this. The others in the room, excluding Fugaku, were filled with rage at the kidnapper. We'll take her for now, the assailant said before vanishing. Wait! Kakashi yelled, but it was too late. Both Rin and the enemy had disappeared. Dimn it! Obito muttered, starting to run after where the enemy had gone. Wait, Obito! Don't go after them, Kakashi called, stopping him. What? Obito shouted, looking at Kakashi and then back at the screen. The adults in the room sighed. This was bad. They knew what was coming. Kakashi would have to make a choice, just like his father had, between the mission and the life of a comrade. Rin felt terrible about this. It was her fault for not being stronger. What? Do you even realize what you're saying? Obito yelled. Yeah. The two of us will continue the mission, Kakashi replied. But you can't be serious. Obito exclaimed, looking at Kakashi, who didn't even glance away from the screen. It's okay, Obito, Rin said with a faint smile. What? But Obito began, but seeing Rin's expression, he stopped. She didn't want another argument. Okay. But Rin, what about Rin? Obito asked sharply. Rin comes later, Kakashi answered. The enemy wants to know our objective. They won't harm her right away. Fortunately, Rin is a medical ninja. Even as a prisoner, she would be treated well, as long as she provides medical treatment to the enemy. More importantly, the real issue is the enemy discovering our aim. If that information leaks, they'll immediately prepare to guard the bridge. If that happens, the mission will fail, Kakashi stated. We shall discuss this afterward, Minato said, looking at the hooded figure who nodded in agreement. Very well, he replied. What you're saying doesn't take Rin's safety into account. What if those guys were just some foolish underlings? Right now, rescuing Rin takes priority over the mission. Obito shouted, pointing at Kakashi. As a shinobi, even if you have to sacrifice comrades, completing the mission is essential. That is the rule. If this mission fails, the war will drag on, leading to even more sacrifices, Kakashi insisted. Obito clenched his fists, struggling to contain his emotions as he watched his future self grow angrier by the minute. Minato, being the supportive sensei he was, placed a reassuring hand on Obito's shoulder, reminding him that they could change the future. That's just speculation. Could you really abandon a comrade who has fought alongside you so easily? Whenever you and I were injured, Rin always saved us with her medical ninjutsu. If it weren't for her, we'd have been dead long ago. Obito yelled. The brat has a point, Tsunade muttered to herself. That was Rin's duty, Kakashi stated, but that crossed a line even for him. Obito punched Kakashi in the face, causing him to stumble back. I hate you after all. Obito shouted. Rin held her breath, watching the confrontation unfold. This was escalating quickly. I take that back, Rin, Kushina said, catching Rin's attention. Words actually have power. She glanced at the two boys, realizing that without Rin's presence, their arguments had turned physical. I don't care if you hate me. I'm the captain. You must follow my orders. No matter the situation, if the squad is scattered, decisions are made by one person. That's why the rule exists that squad members must obey their captain. Obito, you have no authority, and that's why I'm the captain. Before Kakashi could finish, Obito grabbed him by the shirt and pulled him up. Then why do you refuse to save Rin? Only you have the power to save her, right? Obito yelled. Silence fell over the group as they watched the boys argue. They were just kids, faced with a choice that felt impossibly heavy. This war was truly devastating. If you let your emotions take over and fail a crucial mission, you'll regret it. That's why shinobi are taught to suppress their feelings. You should know that, Kakashi replied. Obito released Kakashi and closed his eyes. Rin gave you a medical pack because she cared about you. She even sewed a charm into it. Medical packs and medical ninjutsu are Konoha's brilliant system to increase mission success. But like I said yesterday, if you accept unnecessary things, they just become burdens, Kakashi stated. Unnecessary things? Obito echoed, disbelief in his voice as Kakashi nodded. Using yourself as a tool is vital for the mission. Emotions are unnecessary. Obito was taken aback, shaking as he looked into Kakashi's eyes. He was serious about this. Are you really serious? Is this how you feel? Obito asked quietly. Kakashi looked down, guilt creeping in. He remembered the past, a painful choice made by someone who had to choose between the lives of comrades and the mission. That someone was his father, and he would never let that happen again. Yeah, Kakashi replied, taking a deep breath. He knew he was lying. His team meant everything to him. They were his family, especially his sensei, who was probably the most disappointed by his words. A heavy silence followed. Obito stood there, shocked by Kakashi's response. How could he feel this way? Did Rin mean nothing to him? That's it, Obito said. You and I have never seen eye to eye. I'm going to rescue Rin. He turned to walk away. No, Obito. You shouldn't, Rin said softly. Of course I'd go after you. Unlike someone, you actually mean a lot to me. Obito smiled at her, causing her to blush. It took a moment for her to process what he had said. I in a teammate-friendly way. Obito quickly clarified. You don't understand what happens to those who break the rules. Kakashi shouted after him. Obito stopped but didn't turn around. I believe the White Fang was a true hero. Kakashi's eyes widened in shock. How did he know? What? Kakashi gasped, looking between Obito and the screen, stunned by his words. It's true, in the ninja world, those who break the rules are called trash. But those who abandon their friends are worse than trash. If that makes me trash, then I'll break all the rules. If that's not what a true shinobi is, then I'll redefine what it means to be one. With that, Obito walked away. Minato smiled at Obito, nodding in approval. Everyone in the room felt the same way. Obito was right. A life was more important than anything else. The final scene showed the two young shinobi going their separate ways, Kakashi turning his back to Obito, who didn't look back. Once it was over, everyone turned to Kakashi and Obito, both refusing to meet each other's gaze. Minato sighed. I believe we have a lot to discuss, you two. Everyone was staring at the two boys who wouldn't even look at each other. It saddened Minato to see that his teachings had seemingly fallen on deaf ears. Yet he knew he had to address this with them directly. Obito gulped at the sight of his sensei's disappointed expression. It wasn't often they saw Minato frown, and the weight of that disappointment was heavy on both boys. A team's most important aspect is teamwork. Without it, you might as well go solo. Minato finally broke the silence, causing his students to jump slightly. I tried. You saw it too, sensei. I tried. I even put aside my pride to make it work. And yet he is just so ugh. Obito exclaimed, crossing his arms in frustration. Minato sighed. This isn't just about Kakashi, Obito. This is about you too. You must listen to your captain's orders and not act against the rules. However, Kakashi, you are also out of line. Your first priority as team captain should be your team's safety. Kushina and Tsunade nodded in agreement, while Jiraiya and Fugaku exchanged approving glances with Minato. You said it yourself, Kakashi, a shinobi must not show emotion. However, your decision was influenced by the legacy of the White Fang. Kakashi's eyes widened at the mention of his father, a topic rarely discussed. It's truly sad, Tsunade said, looking down. The shinobi world forces children into war. They aren't ready to make decisions like this. The success of the mission or the life of a comrade. That's just. Minato smiled sadly as he looked at his three students. He sat back down next to Kushina and glanced at the hooded man. I believe we still have to finish what we started, Minato said. The man gave him a small nod before the screen began to show images again. The ground shook as massive rocks and boulders were hurled at the Konoha shinobi. Unfortunately, not many of them were left standing. Some were falling even at that moment. Is this the Canopy Bridge? Minato thought, sensing that many shared the same concern. Minato rushed toward the remaining ninjas. They all appeared exhausted, likely out of chakra. The enemy was formidable, that much was clear. But their strength lay in their numbers. Kami-sama. It's been a while since I've seen this much blood, Tsunade said, shifting uncomfortably in her chair. Jiraiya shot her a disapproving glance before returning his attention to the screen. She doesn't handle blood well since those incidents. He thought to himself. What's the situation? Minato asked as he jumped next to the captain. The man sighed, glancing at the battlefield while dodging a large rock. There are about 50 enemies and we're down to 4 men. The bodies scattered across the ground only added to the nightmare. Most of the surviving ninjas were resigned to their fate by now. That's just horrible. Kushina exclaimed, her worry evident. The others nodded in agreement. But with Minato there, the enemy wouldn't know what was coming. They might be 50, but Minato was worth 100. Everyone, Please throw these kunai at the enemy's side simultaneously. After that, I'll handle this myself, Minato instructed as he laid out his special kunai. No matter what, this is just insane, someone protested loudly. Shut up and do as he says. We'll get to see Konoha's yellow flash in action now. Don't blink for a second, the captain urged, causing the others to look at Minato in awe. Yeah, but can you stop being so reckless for once? Kushina said, giving Minato a concerned glare. Minato chuckled softly and turned back to the screen. Unlike Kushina, Obito was intrigued. Their sensei was going to take down 50 men all at once. He knew Minato was strong, but he never imagined he could be that powerful. The scene shifted to Kakashi, who was now advancing forward. As he leaped between branches, a sharp pain shot through his arm. The memories of Rin's words haunted him, as did Obito's. Deep down, he knew that despite Obito's usual antics, he had said something right this time. Obito grinned at the screen. Finally, Kakashi was feeling some remorse. But Kakashi already knew what was coming. Obito had said enough to change his perspective. What Obito from the present didn't realize was that his future self had impressed him as well. He saw Obito differently now, not just as someone he used to look down on. Yet, the thought of his father loomed over him like a dark cloud. He was about to repeat the same mistake his father had made, a mistake that had cost his father his life. The scene changed to Obito, standing outside a cave. He had just discovered the enemy's hideout. He gulped as he stared at the ominous cave. This is it, he thought. Calm down, you can do this. His trembling hands told a different story. Taking a deep breath, he slapped his cheeks lightly to steady himself before grabbing a kunai and preparing for a surprise attack. Little did he realize that in doing so, he had alerted the enemy to his presence. And just like that, his stealth was compromised. Kakashi facepalmed at that, while the others tried not to laugh. It was a serious situation after all. Good job, Obito. Nice stealth skills, Kakashi said sarcastically, causing Obito to turn red. Shut up. I wasn't thinking. Obito retorted defensively. Rin smiled at that. It might have seemed like a rude remark, but it was moments like these that bonded them together. Inside the cave, Rin was tied to a rock, ensnared in a powerful genjutsu. The two hidden stone ninjas waited impatiently for her to divulge information, but to their disappointment, she remained silent. Everyone frowned at that. You're quite a skilled kunoichi to withstand their pressure, even under a genjutsu, Rin. Good job, Tsunade praised, eliciting a small smile from her. A sudden sound made the two ninjas look toward the cave's exit. I'll handle this, the taller ninja said before vanishing into thin air. His jutsu allowed him to become invisible, likely a key reason for his strength. That ability to become invisible is quite troublesome, Jiraiya remarked, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. As Obito prepared to leap from the tree, an unexpected attack was launched at him. Before he could react, a sword appeared out of nowhere, blocking the strike. It was Kakashi. Obito clapped his hands and looked at Kakashi. Well, I apologize for what I said. I guess you aren't heartless after all, Obito said with a slight smile, making Kakashi nod in agreement. Same here. Kakashi? Obito asked, surprised. What was he doing here? Hadn't he just given him a lengthy lecture about not abandoning the mission for a teammate? I figured I shouldn't just leave you guys like that, Kakashi replied as he helped Obito to his feet. The White Fang? The enemy gasped, noticing the sword in Kakashi's hands. Okay, he has the strength but not the brains. He's been dead for years. And not to mention that Kakashi is a bit shorter than Tsukumo, Tsunade shook her head. It can't be. He's dead. This, Kakashi began, gripping the sword tightly, is a memento of my father. Obito's eyes sparkled at that. He had never seen Kakashi act this way. He looked so proud to mention his father. He had never done that before. It was like witnessing a genuine friendship with this guy, whoever he was. The enemy scoffed at that. So you're the White Fang's child. Well then, I have no reason to worry. The ninja vanished once again, leaving no trace behind. Big mistake you've made. Kakashi is probably more skilled than you realize. But that jutsu? Minato thought as he looked more closely at the screen. Kakashi and Obito scanned their surroundings for any sign of movement. As I suspected, even his scent has vanished. I guess the only way we can fight this guy is by sound, Kakashi deduced. And it gets even better. Jiraiya laughed. Why are you laughing? Tsunade asked, annoyed. I love to see people struggle over small things. Is that bad? But there was no sound at all. Everything felt too normal for their own good. Obito and Kakashi remained on high alert, their senses heightened. Suddenly, Kakashi sensed a presence behind him and quickly tried to dodge the impending attack, but he wasn't fast enough. The sharp end of the kunai grazed his face, leaving a painful mark. What were you saying, Jiraiya? Small things? Tsunade leaned toward him, a smirk on her face. Ouch. Obito murmured quietly. I guess you didn't see that one coming, huh? Everyone turned to Obito. You just had to say that, didn't you? Tsunade said, a hint of annoyance in her voice, while Jiraiya burst into laughter. Guys, come on. This is a serious situation. Kakashi let out a small yelp as he instinctively pressed his hands against the wound. Kakashi! Obito shouted, kneeling beside him. Kakashi fell to his knees, pain coursing through him. Clenching his fist, he let out a small hiss and opened his other eye. Ugh, it's all right. I still have the medical kit that Rin gave me. But my left eye is done for. He glanced at Obito, who had tears welling in his eyes. What are you crying for? Kakashi asked softly as he retrieved his kit. Never thought it was that bad. Jiraiya mumbled, feeling a twinge of regret for laughing earlier. As Kakashi worked to patch himself up, Obito was lost in thought. I'm always waiting for someone to save me. The only thing I've done so far is cry, he reflected. He might as well awaken his Sharingan, Fugaku thought with a small smile. His nephew had always dreamed of this moment. Just then, a shinobi charged at them. Thanks to his jutsu, he had a direct hit on the two of them, with Obito as his first target. That was his mistake. But this time I will save my friends. In an instant, Obito's Sharingan activated. He swiftly grabbed his kunai and took down the man who was right behind him. Obito! Rin gasped, clapping her hands together in excitement. Obito smiled brightly at the screen. This was the moment he had waited for. He looked at his eyes for a moment, wondering what it was like to see through them. I had faith in you that you could do it, Minato said, placing a hand on Obito's shoulder. Well done, Obito, Fugaku praised him. Obito's heart raced. This had never happened before, and he didn't quite know how to react. He simply smiled at his uncle and thanked him, though inside he was overwhelmed. How did you? Kakashi struggled to find the words to express how Obito had sensed the enemy's presence and defeated him. Your eyes, the hidden stone ninja said before collapsing. Kakashi stood up and looked at Obito, who had turned around. His eyes were different, and even his expression had changed. Obito was beginning to understand what had just happened. He had finally activated his Sharingan. Obito! Your eyes. Yeah, I know. So this is the Sharingan. I can see my chakra flow, Obito said, examining his hands. Interesting, Obito thought. I look so cool saving Kakashi for once. Kakashi remained silent, both of them still in shock at what had just occurred. Come on. Let's go save Rin, Kakashi finally said, looking toward the cave. Rin and Minato smiled at the screen. It was refreshing to see Kakashi and Obito getting along for once. See, it isn't that hard, Kushina giggled, knowing exactly how Minato must have felt. This was definitely a huge improvement for the team. Kakashi, however, was quiet the entire time. He didn't know how to react. Was it okay to be friends now? Did Obito still hate him? Were they really like oil and water as he had said before? Inside the cave, Rin was still under the genjutsu. The other hidden stone ninja struggled to gather intel from her. As he sighed, he suddenly turned around, sensing a presence at the entry. Defeated by some brats, he muttered upon seeing Obito and Kakashi. He was a good-for-nothing anyway. He shrugged. I guess I just have to take you down myself. I have a feeling he's as dumb as the last one, Tsunade remarked, making Jiraiya and Kushina nod in agreement. Minato, however, sensed danger. He couldn't explain why, but he felt that something was off. He knew he shouldn't jump to conclusions, but he had a bad feeling about this. Just then, the enemy threw his kunai at the two boys. Kakashi and Obito quickly dodged the attack and leaped into the air. "I'll take care of him. Go and get Rin," Kakashi urged Obito. Obito sprinted toward Rin, who was tied up. Noticing her distorted chakra, he realized she was under a genjutsu. "Release," he commanded, and just like that, Rin opened her eyes and saw Obito in front of her. "Obito." "Kakashi," she said quietly, looking between the two. Kakashi had finished off the enemy and was now beside Obito. "Good job, Obito." Kushina cheered, leaning forward to pat him on the back. Obito winced but tried to suppress any sound. "Thanks," he murmured, trying to mask the pain. Minato offered him an empathetic look. "Come on. Let's go," Obito said, extending his hand to Rin, who gladly accepted it. As they were about to exit the cave, they passed the fallen enemy, who suddenly stirred back to life. Earth-style, rock collapse. "Oh no!" Tsunade exclaimed, her eyes widening. Kushina and Jiraiya shared the same shocked expression. Minato closed his eyes and let out a sigh, knowing something was about to happen. He just hoped nothing would happen to his students. The three young shinobi gasped as the ceiling began to collapse, blocking their exit with falling rocks. Kakashi, Rin, and Obito stood frozen, watching as the debris rained down around them. Just like their sensei, they shared the same fear. Rin unconsciously held Obito's hand, causing him to blush slightly. What Obito didn't realize was that she was also holding Kakashi's hand. She just wanted to feel like they were a team again. "Run!" Kakashi yelled. The trio sprinted for their lives, but as they dashed forward, a rock fell from the ceiling, striking Kakashi on the head and knocking him out. Rin tightened her grip on Kakashi's hand, knowing what was about to happen. Everyone was aware of the impending danger. Kushina and Tsunade exchanged worried glances at Kakashi before turning their attention back to the screen. "Kakashi!" Obito shouted, seeing his teammate motionless. He jumped beside him but quickly realized something alarming. A boulder was about to fall from above, and there was no time to waste. Rin dropped their hands and covered her mouth in horror. This was all her fault. Obito clenched his teeth and, in a split second, pushed Kakashi out of harm's way just in time. Minato clenched his fist in frustration. What kind of sensei was he, allowing his students to be in such danger? Kushina sensed his discomfort and placed her hand over his, offering a reassuring smile before looking back at the screen. The jutsu ceased, and an eerie silence filled the air. Dust clouded the view, making it hard to see. Kakashi and Rin lay next to each other, while Obito's location remained uncertain. "Are you alright, Rin?" "Kakashi?" Obito's voice broke through the tension. Rin's and Kakashi's eyes widened in shock. Obito was on the ground, trapped under a boulder, looking gravely injured. Rin let out a cry, and Kushina instinctively echoed her distress. "Obito!" Rin exclaimed, glancing between the Obito beside her and the one on the screen. She held his hand tightly, fearing he might vanish. Tsunade and Jiraiya struggled to process the scene. Obito might have been an annoying brat, but he was still just a child. No one deserved this fate. "Obito!" they yelled as they rushed to his side. Kakashi attempted to lift the boulder, but it was far too heavy. Regret and guilt began to consume him. "It's all right, Kakashi. I can't feel my right side anymore," Obito said softly. The next moment surprised many, but not all. Kakashi began to tear up, overwhelmed with regret. If only he had acted differently, they could have saved Rin much sooner. With that thought, he started to cry, punching the ground in despair. "Damn it! If only I had listened to you from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. What kind of jounin am I?" Kakashi shouted. Obito was taken aback for once. Is this how Kakashi has felt all his life? He glanced at Kakashi, pausing for a moment. Kakashi was silently crying. Obito stood up, drawing the attention of everyone in the room, including Kakashi. He walked over and sat beside him, surprising Minato and Rin. Obito offered Kakashi a small smile before turning his gaze back to the screen. "Obito," Rin cried, holding his hand tightly. The pain in her voice was palpable. She closed her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed. She was blaming herself. That reminds me. I was the only one who didn't give you a gift for your promotion, Obito recalled. I was too stubborn to buy you something, and I didn't know what to get you. Kakashi looked at Obito, confused. Did Obito really think he cared about that now? Obito. I don't think Kakashi cares about that anymore, Kushina whispered. Obito smiled at the screen, remaining silent, leaving Kakashi and the others wondering what he was thinking. But I think I know what to give you now. Don't worry, it isn't a lame gift. Obito began to cough, causing Rin and Kakashi to jump slightly. I'm giving you my left eye. That way, after I'm gone, you'll be my eye in this world. I couldn't possibly accept something like that, Kakashi said quietly. Obito gave him a knowing look before continuing. I wouldn't give it to anyone else, Obito replied, looking away. Kakashi gasped, while Rin wiped away her tears. Nice, Rin. You truly have that in your blood. You'll become an amazing medical ninja, Tsunade thought. Minato continued to stare at the screen, struggling to understand. If Obito was the main problem, why was the shinobi beside them showing his own death? Was Obito truly destined to die there? Rin will replace your left eye with this one using medical ninjutsu, Obito explained. No, I can't. Kakashi-kun. We don't have much time, Rin urged as she prepared for the surgery. Kakashi, I'm going to die. With that, Kakashi stepped forward. Man, and I thought we were the ones with more experience. Jiraiya remarked, leaning back and stretching his arms. You're the last person to talk. Tsunade retorted angrily. Still, I can't actually, Kakashi started, but Minato interrupted. Just accept it, Kakashi. Plus, it's not set in stone that this is your future. We can change it, Minato said, glaring at the hooded figure who nodded at them. Kakashi fell silent. It was true, this didn't have to happen again, but he still felt guilty for what he had witnessed. Outside, the man they had previously fought stood quietly, waiting for any sign of survivors. Well, just as I finally found some information. It can't be helped, he shrugged before walking away. If I see this man during the mission, I'll take him down myself, Minato thought. Kakashi leaped from the cave, startling the other shinobi. Oh, you're a stubborn one, aren't you? The hidden stone ninja smirked. What a crybaby. Don't you know that a ninja shouldn't show his tears? With that, Kakashi gripped his sword and opened his left eye. Instead of a normal eye like his right, he now possessed a Sharingan. The enemy paused for a moment. You look pretty cool, Kakashi. Obito smiled at the screen, admiring his now Kakashi's Sharingan. Kakashi still didn't understand Obito's sudden change in attitude. He shot him a glance before looking back at the screen. Something's different about you, the man said before charging at him. Is he seriously blind? Can't he see that Kakashi has the Sharingan now? What is going on? Tsunade said, her annoyance evident. Inside the cave, Rin held Obito's hand tightly as they waited for Kakashi to return. Suddenly, an enemy appeared at the entrance, causing Rin to grip Obito's hand even tighter. Wait, what? Jiraiya asked, confusion etched on his face. The others watched intently, brows furrowed. Calm down, Rin, Obito said, attempting a reassuring smile. The enemy collapsed to the ground, and Kakashi emerged behind him. Obito felt a wave of relief wash over him. He coughed lightly and tried to loosen Rin's grip. I knew it, Obito whispered. Kakashi, take Rin and go. More reinforcements are coming, Obito said, breaking the tense silence, making Rin gasp. Kushina sighed heavily. This is too much. I can't watch him die like this, she murmured. I can't just leave you here, Obito. Rin shouted, her voice filled with desperation. You both need to get out of here quickly. Outside, reinforcements had arrived. The same jutsu that caused the chaos began to make the rocks collapse again. Rin hesitated, torn about leaving Obito, but she knew there was no choice. With tears in their eyes, they watched as the rocks fell, covering Obito completely. Kushina and Rin closed their eyes, unable to watch as Obito's face disappeared from view. Just when Kakashi and I were starting to get along. I couldn't even confess to Rin. What a way to go. I wish I had more time, Obito thought as the last rock blocked out the light. Obito's face turned bright red with embarrassment. He wished he could disappear. Hey, what the heck? You didn't need to include my thoughts too. We could have done without that. Obito yelled at the hooded figure, causing a few people in the room to stifle small giggles through their tears. Kakashi and Rin tried to escape, but the enemy was closing in. Kakashi knew he had to protect Rin. It was his promise to Obito. He stopped running, forcing Rin to do the same. She looked at him, confusion and fear in her eyes. What are you doing, Kakashi? She asked, worried. Just go. I promised Obito I'd protect you, even if it costs me my life. But he made me promise because he cared for you, Rin. So just let him rest in peace and find a safe place. Obito couldn't bear to face Rin now. Rin swallowed hard but eventually agreed to Kakashi's terms. As she ran away, Kakashi pulled out the last weapon he had, a kunai given to him by his sensei. His father's sword had been destroyed in his last fight, leaving him with no choice but to fight with this kunai. He charged forward, and everything went dark. What? What just happened? Tsunade yelled at the screen. Did we just witness another death? Jiraiya said, prompting glares from the young Chunin. The screen remained black for a moment before revealing Kakashi, slowly waking up. Am I dead? He thought. Probably, Jiraiya shrugged. Kakashi opened his eyes to find himself no longer in the forest but on a rock in a valley filled with flowers. The dark sky sparkled with flickering stars, creating a glittering effect. Next to him sat his sensei, gazing at the valley. Minato turned to Kakashi, who was holding his head. Looks like you're awake, Minato said. Kakashi quickly realized what had happened. Where was the enemy? Obito. Sensei? But how? Kakashi asked, bewildered. Minato smiled and held up the kunai he had used in the forest. This kunai is a marker for my transportation technique. It acts like a beacon when used. I knew it would come in handy. Minato thought to himself. Nice gift, Minato. A real lifesaver, Jiraiya praised. And the enemy? Kakashi's eyes widened. I took care of them, Minato replied. And Rin? Where's Rin? Kakashi asked, panic rising in his voice. Minato pointed toward the valley, where Rin stood gazing at the stars. Kakashi felt a wave of relief wash over him, but guilt still lingered. Oh man, I feel really bad. Obito thought. It's strange to know you're dead. Even stranger when people talk about you. His teammate had just died. I'm sorry I didn't make it in time, Kakashi. Rin told me everything. The Third Great Ninja War had left many scars and countless losses. Great heroes and brave souls had sacrificed everything for their country, but some could only be remembered by names etched on stone. The scene shifted to a stone surrounded by flowers and candles. One name stood out, Obito Uchiha. Everyone held their breath at the somber sight. Obito looked at his hands, unsure how to react to his own death. It was something he never expected to witness. Obito, Kakashi began, but Obito stood up and stretched his arms. Well, that was absolutely depressing, he laughed, receiving mournful looks from the others. I guess the universe couldn't handle it anymore. You and I, Kakashi? Getting along? It was too much for the universe to bear, he continued, forcing a laugh. Now, Obito, I'm sure that's not the reason, Kushina interjected. I believe your death deepened the bond between you two. I want to apologize, Kakashi said suddenly, stepping closer to Obito. Obito raised an eyebrow. All this time, I've been kind of a jiff. I want to apologize for what I said today and in the past. Obito smiled. It's okay. I knew it was for a reason. Now I understand why. So, friends? Kakashi asked, extending his hand for a handshake. Obito gladly accepted. Friends. There was a brief pause and everyone smiled at the two. It was surprising how, through these videos, Obito and Kakashi were reconciling for everything that had happened. It felt like a positive change. He didn't, did he? Minato asked, causing Rin and Kushina to gasp. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Fugaku exchanged concerned glances. We'll see. Next, we have something a bit different. We're jumping ahead from the events. A few years for a fact, the hooded man said. This is about to get interesting, Jiraiya remarked. You have no idea, the stranger thought before performing the jutsu on the screen. The young Team 7 still felt a little shaken after the events they had just witnessed. Unlike the Jounins in the room, they didn't have much experience accepting someone's death easily. But the Jounins weren't enjoying the sight of the future unraveling before them either. It was instinct to protect the children. After all, they were the future. All right then, let's start. Kushina gulped, feeling anxious. If Obito had died, who would be next? Was the war over by that time? She hoped so. The scene opened with the famous trio formation of Ino Shikacho, who had just arrived at the borders. Their mission was simple yet dangerous. Well, I definitely wasn't expecting to see Shikaku, Inoichi, and Kazura today, Jiraiya chuckled. On the other side of the border, a handful of hidden stone shinobi waited for the trio to make a mistake. Grinning, they subtly readied their kunais. Man, the war again? Obito complained. Accept this from the Hokage. Shikaku shouted, loud enough to be heard, before throwing the secret scroll at the stone shinobi. The apparent leader caught it easily and frowned at the document. Deliver it to the Lord Tsuchikage and inform him that we desire an immediate response. Shikaku concluded. Could it be? Tsunade murmured as she looked at the scroll. It seems like it, Minato nodded, understanding her implication. The Jounins shared a knowing look, each having an idea of what was contained in that scroll. What is it, sensei? Obito asked, curiosity getting the better of him. It didn't take long for the ninjas before them to respond. Well, Obito, during this time of war, the Hokage and the Tsuchikage don't communicate much, fearing it might spark other conflicts, Minato explained. There's no reason to bother the Tsuchikage with such matters. We'll give you your answer right here, right now. Jiraiya said, shaking his head. But from what we see, it seems that the Lord Hokage intends to end the war. There's a possibility that inside that very scroll is a peace treaty, Minato finished. And so, they know what's inside the scroll? Obito stuttered. Naturally, Tsunade replied, a hint of annoyance in her voice as she noticed the stone ninjas preparing for a fight. The trio stepped back at her words. They had expected this, but not so soon. So if they know, why don't they just go to the Tsuchikage? Everyone wants the war to end, Obito asked, his eyes following Shikaku. No, Kakashi interjected, making Rin and Obito look at him. Sure, they all want the war to stop, but they also want to win it. A peace treaty means there is no winner. Every nation involved would gain nothing, Minato added. A tense silence fell as the other stone ninjas drew their kunais, preparing for battle. Their leader appeared confident, but Shikaku knew that sometimes it was best to think before acting. They shouldn't be so one-sided. Tsunade murmured, her gaze fixed on the screen. Sometimes it's best not to be hasty, a voice said, drawing the others' attention. Who? Obito asked quietly, trying to get a better view, which began to annoy Tsunade as her chair creaked. Stop that, she yelled, making Jiraiya jump slightly. What? Why is the hidden sand here? By now, most of the stone shinobi realized they were the ones who had made the first mistake. On the side of the hidden sand border, the fourth Kazekage stood tall and strong, flanked by dozens of men ready for a fight. The hidden stone understood the message. So that's the fourth Kazekage. Minato observed, examining the man on the screen. He looks young, Jiraiya. Noted. I've heard that the third's disappearance is still a mystery, Tsunade recalled, remembering the rumors she had heard a few weeks ago. This is the hidden sand territory. It would be unwise to have an incident occur here. We will extinguish any sparks that fall upon us. The sand will move accordingly. Remember that whatever you decide to do, the Kazekage stated calmly. He looks pretty intimidating if you ask me, Obito remarked, studying the Kazekage. He couldn't understand why the Jounins seemed a bit on edge around him. Still, no one can forget what happened to the third, Jiraiya said. Wasn't he the Kage who mysteriously disappeared recently? Rin asked, biting her nails. Disappeared? Obito echoed, locking eyes with Minato. The third Kazekage was renowned for his strength and intellect. At the beginning of the war, he vanished without a trace. No one knows what happened to him, whether he is dead or simply in hiding, Minato explained to Obito, whose eyes widened in realization. The possibilities were endless. If this man was so strong, why had he run away? It just didn't seem right. However, his tone conveyed a message that was more like, I dare you to take this for granted. If you ask me, I'd say he was killed, Tsunade said, her eyes never leaving the screen. You mean he was assassinated? Obito asked quietly, glancing at Tsunade. That made her look away from the screen and shift her attention to Obito. Who knows? Tsunade said dreamily. It might be a message. She finished. A message? Obito asked, furrowing his brows but receiving no answer. He glanced around the room, hoping someone would respond, but no one did. Confusion settled over him. It wasn't long before the stone shinobi scattered and returned to their villages at their captain's orders. The scene shifted to the hidden stone village, where an important meeting was underway. What about the request to enter into the peace treaty? An elder asked. Naturally, it will be turned down, another elder replied. What? Are they that foolish? Kushina exclaimed, her hair beginning to float around her in frustration. Minato moved back, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire of her emotions. The red-hot habanero. Obito mumbled, a bead of sweat forming on his forehead. Scary, he added, prompting Kushina to turn her attention to him. What did you say? She shouted, making Minato close one eye and Rin inch closer to Kakashi, who remained oblivious to the chaos around him. Nothing. Obito stammered. Whatever the hidden leaf negotiates with the hidden sand, nothing will challenge the unity of the stone, someone said, causing the others in the meeting to rise from their seats and nod in agreement as they began to converse among themselves. But this is much more to consider than your own pride. Kushina sighed, crossing her arms. I never thought I'd witness a council meeting from the hidden stone. Jiraiya said, moving closer to the screen. You can say that again, Kushina nodded. The Kazekage, however, had a different perspective. While he valued his pride, he valued his people even more. The war had inflicted heavy losses on both the hidden leaf and hidden stone. This needed to end, and this was their chance to make that decision. Silence, the Kazekage commanded, establishing order in the room. Naturally, I am proud of the unity of the stone. However, he glanced down at the scroll lying on the table before him. With our pride on the line, we sent 1,000 of our shinobi. I hear it took just one of them, the yellow flash, to stop the invasion. How is that old man still alive? Tsunade's eyes twitched. You know he's only a few years older than the third, right? Jiraiya pointed out, looking at Tsunade, who sighed in annoyance. At least he still has some common sense, she added. Everyone fell silent, ashamed of their previous responses. They had forgotten the sacrifices made to get them this far. And that's just the reality of it. Well, does that mean the war is over? Obito asked hopefully. Entering the final stage of the war, more likely, Fugaku replied, causing Obito to glance at him before returning his focus to the screen. Back in Konoha, the Hokage finally received the response they had all been waiting for. The war was in its final stage, and it wouldn't be long before it was officially over. Well done, Hamura said to the third. We can breathe a sigh of relief for now, Koharu added, looking at the Hokage. Danzo, however, did not seem pleased with the news. All this happiness over a simple agreement made him uneasy. The Hokage was too soft-hearted to grasp the full weight of the situation. While he was focused on the villagers, what about those who had already lost their lives? Would they not seek justice? It seemed they would not. I don't get a friendly vibe from this guy, Obito whispered to Kakashi, who heard him nonetheless. You're right. He isn't a friendly guy, Jiraiya nodded. Are you satisfied with an agreement like this? To forgive the Hidden Stone's actions and drop our demands for compensation? It's as though we lost the war. Danzo said sharply, glaring at Hiruzen. Oh. Obito laughed awkwardly. I just jinxed that, didn't I? He thought. Well, he has a point. But losing more innocent lives for the sake of revenge is no longer justice. Kushina shook her head. What do you think, Hiruzen? Hamir asked. Continuing the war any further would be disastrous for the already exhausted Hidden Leaf. It's a step toward finding common ground. As he finished speaking, Danzo slammed his hand on the table, scowling at Hiruzen. War is useless anyway. It only brings destruction and scars, Kushina said, hugging herself. Minato glanced at her, understanding her feelings about war. She truly despised them, yet she also feared them. When she noticed his gaze, their eyes locked. He offered her a reassuring smile before looking back at the screen. Many of my friends gave their lives for this great war. It's as if they died in vain. And I assume full responsibility for that, Hiruzen interrupted, surprising Danzo. He leaned back in his chair, curiosity piqued. Fugaku raised his brows. How was the third going to handle that? There were a few possibilities, and he dared not guess which one it would be. And how do you plan to do that? Danzo asked, sounding more like a challenge than a question. Hiruzen furrowed his brow and sighed. I intend to step down as Hokage and have the fourth announced. What? Obito exclaimed. I was not expecting a new Hokage. This soon? I guess old age finally caught up to him, Tsunade remarked, making Jiraiya chuckle at her comment about their sensei. What do you mean? Obito asked. He's always complaining about paperwork. This is a perfect opportunity for him to leave that place and look cool doing it, Tsunade explained. Paperwork, huh? Minato murmured. It can't be that bad, right? He said a little louder. But to retire? That's a bit much. Hours later, the Konoha Council, along with the Fire Daimyo, gathered for what was probably one of the most important meetings in years. Konoha was about to get a new Hokage. The decision had to be well thought out, but Hiruzen had planned this for months. He knew exactly who he wanted to recommend for the position. How regrettable. The daimyo spoke up. The third was doing a fine job, he remarked, pausing only when Danzo shot him a pointed glare. Exactly, Kushina nodded in agreement. Everyone in the room waited patiently for the new possible candidates. This was certainly becoming interesting. To be honest, the third Hokage was too lenient. He allowed the village to be cornered. We need a Hokage who will bring about change and enforce the laws of the shinobi, Danzo stated. I don't really like this guy. Who is he anyway? Obito asked, crossing his arms. He felt uneasy about this man. There was something too sinister about him. But he kept those thoughts to himself. Shimura Danzo, Fugaku hissed. He's part of the council, but there's more to him than meets the eye. Well, he certainly had the nerve to speak about the third like that. Elder or not, Obito shook his head. And? Is there such a person? The daimyo inquired. There was a brief pause before Danzo decided to voice his thoughts. I recommend Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sen. At those words, a debate erupted in the room. Sure, Orochimaru had power, but Orochimaru? Jiraiya exclaimed, jumping from his seat. What was going on? Orochimaru? Wait, I know who he is, Obito said, suddenly recalling the name. One of the legendary Sanins. Minato furrowed his brows. This wasn't right. He glanced around the room and realized that only 2 of the 3 Sanins were present. Where was Orochimaru? Was he a traitor? That would be scandalous. I would vote for you, darling, Kushina giggled, placing her hand on his shoulder. Ah, thanks, Minato replied awkwardly. Yeah. Sensei, you'd totally be cool as Hokage. Obito chimed in, and his teammates nodded in agreement. But Orochimaru, I never imagined him as Hokage before, Tsunade said, furrowing her brows. What is happening? She thought. What do you think, Lord Third? The Fire Daimyo asked, clearly not thrilled with the current options. Orochimaru truly is a genius in this age of war. Danzo smirked at Hiruzen's comment, feeling pleased with how things were unfolding. However, his confidence began to waver. There's a dark ambition lurking behind those eyes. Such a person cannot be entrusted with the duties of a Hokage. Yep, Obito nodded at the screen. Kakashi remained calm throughout the discussion. He had learned not to be easily swayed by such matters. If this was a glimpse into the future, it was their chance to change it. The Hokage's words confirmed Minato's suspicions. It was becoming clear that Orochimaru was not a good choice. I never really liked Orochimaru that much, to be honest, Kushina said, earning a glare from Jiraiya. There was always something off about him, that much was certain. But labeling him a villain felt extreme. Plus, wasn't the third their sensei? Minato pondered this throughout the conversation. Why was Orochimaru suddenly being considered for Hokage? Supported by Danzo of all people? Lord Third. Danzo gasped, struggling to catch his breath. Wasn't Orochimaru his student? Shouldn't he support that option? I recommend Minato Namikaze, Hiruzen declared, leaving the room in stunned silence. Minato's thoughts froze upon hearing that. It felt as if the world had paused around him, and he was the only one aware of it. His breath caught in his throat, his eyes widened as he looked back at the screen, his hands beginning to sweat. He felt his heart skip a beat. Everyone reacted the same way, turning to Minato before glancing back at the screen. Kushina broke the silence first. "Oh my gosh," she exclaimed, pulling him into a tight hug. "Good job." "Thanks," Minato managed to say once he caught his breath. "I knew it would come true. That dream of yours." "I just knew it," Jiraiya smiled. Could this mean he might be the child of the prophecy? Jiraiya wondered, watching Minato being congratulated by his students. "Minato-sensei." Obito looked at him in awe. His own dream was to become Hokage, and seeing his sensei, who had dreamed of it for years, was truly inspiring. "Congratulations, sensei." Rin smiled at Minato. "Okay, guys, I appreciate it, but I haven't been named Hokage yet. I was just recommended," Minato sighed. "Oh, cut it out. We already know the winner of this race. You've been recommended by the third. You're already in everyone's favor," Tsunade said. "A pupil of Jiraiya. In other words, a disciple of your disciple," Koharu commented. Somehow, she didn't sound too thrilled when she said that, Obito remarked. Minato closed his eyes. Of course, they wouldn't be thrilled about it. They knew of his strength but not his alliances. They were likely thinking that the third was plotting something with his help. "A man so skilled he's nicknamed the Yellow Flash," Hamura added. Danzo appeared furious and stood up. "Minato is still too young," Danzo shouted, causing the daimyo to raise his brows. "The too young excuse is getting old," Tsunade replied, shaking her head. "Yeah. Sensei will be the most amazing Hokage ever." "I know it," Obito shouted at the screen. Truth be told, Minato felt flattered by all the compliments and the faith everyone had in him. He emerged victorious at the Battle of Canopy Bridge and distinguished himself by leading the way to the end of the Third Great Shinobi War. "Well, I'm opposed to it," Danzo declared. Kushina clenched her fists at Danzo's words. She had met him once, and he wasn't exactly pleasant. "Is he allowed to say that?" Obito asked Kakashi quietly. Annoyed, Kakashi turned to him and replied, "Of course he is. It's an open vote." "Still, insulting the third like that shows he has no respect," Fugaku said, causing Obito to glance at him for a moment. A silent glare contest ensued between the two, as if they were from different worlds. They never shared the same opinion. "What about the rest of you?" the daimyo asked. With that, everyone nodded, including the daimyo himself. Danzo lacked support, and his vote no longer mattered. The fourth Hokage had already been chosen. "Oh my gosh! Minato! Congratulations!" Kushina shouted, pulling him into another tight hug. Minato patted her shoulder, trying to calm her down as she was on the verge of tears from excitement. "Sensei!" Obito thought with a big smile on his face. "I wonder how it feels to know that you will achieve your dream." His smile began to fade with that thought. He felt the weight of his past life pressing down on him. He had wanted to become someone successful, but those dreams had been taken from him. Perhaps this time, he could change his fate. "See, what did I tell you?" Tsunade grinned at Minato, who was overwhelmed with emotions as the minutes passed. Kushina felt tears welling in her eyes. As the atmosphere finally calmed, A wave of anxiety and guilt settled in her stomach. It felt as if something was about to go terribly wrong. But what could it be? It felt like the dead silence before a massive storm. The next day, the third Hokage called Minato in to deliver important news. He had known from the moment he recommended Minato that the fate of the village was in capable hands. Minato had worked tirelessly to achieve his dream, which is why the third wanted to share this moment with him personally. Minato noticed the look on Kushina's face. He had never seen her this scared since the day he was about to leave for his first A-rank mission. Leaning closer so no one else could hear, he asked, "Is something troubling you?" "Oh, it's nothing," she replied, forcing a smile. But he could sense that something was off. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly, concern etched on his face. "It's just I don't know. I have this strange feeling. It's like..." "Like what?" "Just forget about it. I'm sure it's nothing. Probably just something I ate," she said, trying to laugh it off before turning her attention back to the screen. "If you say so," Minato mumbled, still unconvinced. "I think you're wondering why I've called you here on your day off," the third stated as Minato knelt before him. "I tend not to question your way, Hokage," Minato replied, eliciting a chuckle from the third. The Hokage sighed, unsure of how to deliver the news. He knew how much it meant to Minato, which made it difficult to say it outright. Last night, as you probably know, the Fire Daimyo was here for an important meeting. Everyone from the council was present, including some jounins. "I have decided to retire." Minato's eyes widened, but he quickly masked his emotions. Was this leading where he thought it was? He hoped he was right this time. "Of course, you already had a clue," Jiraiya sighed. "Why am I surprised?" He rubbed his forehead. "Sorry." Minato chuckled. "Sometimes, it would be amusing to see your reaction to things for once. But I guess that doesn't matter anymore. You're about to become Hokage. The youngest and brightest," Jiraiya said, smiling at Minato, who returned the smile. "The fourth Hokage has been chosen," Hiruzen paused. "I believe you will carry on the will of fire. I want to entrust you with the future of the Hidden Leaf and the shinobi world. You will accept, won't you?" The third already knew the answer but needed confirmation. "I will do my best to deserve your trust, Lord Third," Minato replied, finally meeting the third's gaze. "I wish I could have passed this on under better circumstances. What lies ahead is not peaceful." "I'm prepared for it," Minato answered sincerely. "I'm sure you are. I have faith in you." "Wait, that was it?" Obito asked, confused. "What did you think it would be like?" Kakashi replied, a bit annoyed. "I don't know. More grandiose, maybe? A little more excitement? Some emotions?" Obito shrugged. "Maybe another time, kiddo," Tsunade replied. The Hokage did say he wished to announce it under better circumstances. It just wasn't the right time. Rin smiled at Obito, who was now blushing. Ever since that moment when he almost confessed his feelings for her, and Kakashi pointed it out a few times, it had been hard for Obito to face Rin. That was why he sat beside Kakashi now. The moment their eyes met, Obito quickly looked away, and so did Rin. It seemed they both remembered the same thing. "Man, I really messed up this time. I guess my death wasn't the only tragedy that happened then. My entire relationship with Rin, built up over the years in the academy, was lost along with it. Curse those rocks." With his fist suddenly raised in the air, Obito caught Kakashi's attention. Kakashi looked at him, confused and a bit weirded out. What's wrong with him now? Is he having an internal monologue or something? Kakashi thought, raising his eyebrows. Later that day, Minato finally arrived home. He felt overwhelmed by the realization that he would now be called the fourth Hokage. It sounded cheesy to imagine Kushina calling him that. It was a dream they both shared, one day hoping to pass it on to their child. Kushina was happily waiting for Minato's return. They are just so cute together, Rin thought, blushing as she watched. Minato entered the house with a serious expression, trying to act as if he had everything under control when, in reality, he was on cloud 9. But that facade crumbled the moment he saw Kushina smile. "What are you doing there?" Kushina asked, noticing his movements. She walked toward him, beaming. "What did the Lord Third want with you?" Before he could respond, she began to interpret it differently. Did you get scolded? So what? Don't worry about it, she said hopefully. Minato had never been scolded, and that bothered her a little. Deep down, she wanted to see him get scolded at least once since he always performed better than she did. Kushina laughed awkwardly, predicting she would say that. Ever since Minato became a celebrity among the nations for his skills, she had hoped he would experience some reprimand for once. She still wanted to become Hokage. She had her reasons. Databane. She sighed as she facepalmed. Good to see you haven't changed, Kushina, Jiraiya laughed. I'm not sure if I should punch you or thank you. Well, it wasn't that. Then what, Databane? Kushina asked, confused. Oh. He wants me to be the 4th Hokage, Minato announced. Oh really? Don't mind the Hokage. He's only doing that to make you a better Shin. Kushina stopped mid-sentence. What? What did? You just say? Kushina yelled, a blush forming on her cheeks. The entire room filled with laughter. Kushina tried to hide her blush with a chuckle. Yes, it was funny, but for her, it was absolutely embarrassing. Minato smiled at her and placed his hand on her back. I think it's cute, he said, making Kushina smile as she met his eyes. Of course, he would say that. After all, he would be in trouble if he laughed along with the others. I've been named the 4th Hokage, Minato nodded. Databane. Somewhere in a forest that same night, many Anbu were scattered around an entrance to what seemed like a hideout. What? Why are the Anbu there? Obito raised his eyebrows. It looks like a shady place if you ask me. Good question, kid. This might start to get interesting again, Jiraiya nodded. Inside the hideout, Orochimaru was working on his experiments as Danzo paced around the room. Jiraiya's eyes went from wide open in surprise to filled with absolute disgust. This was absolutely unacceptable. Orochimaru? So he's working with Danzo now? Why would he do that? Tsunade asked, confused. Just as I suspected. There was something more than met the eye, Minato thought. That guy again? Obito scoffed. It's all going Hiruzen's way, Danzo said as he stopped behind Orochimaru. Hiruzen's way, huh? Jiraiya mocked him. The 3rd Hokage intends to use Minato as a puppet and keep ruling the hidden leaf, Orochimaru stated, not bothering to look at Danzo. Wait, so he's a bad guy? Obito asked, confused. He wasn't the only one. All the jounin in the room were a little on edge. They had no idea who the enemy was. Was it Danzo? Was it Orochimaru? Who was manipulating whom? At this rate, the hidden leaf has no future. Don't give up yet. If my research is successful, it will be easy to grasp the power of the hidden leaf. To grasp power, stronger measures must be prepared. When the time comes, we won't be choosing measures. But it's not time yet. I really don't have a good feeling about this, Rin shook her head. Minato looked around the room. Everybody was surprised to see Orochimaru acting that way. True, he wasn't the most angelic presence in the world, but that did not mean they didn't trust him. At this point, they all knew what was coming next, a betrayal. The next day, the 4th Hokage was announced to the world. Everyone was shocked at the sudden change, but they all seemed very happy with the choice. Kakashi wasn't aware of the news yet. He was sitting on a bench, alone, reading a book when suddenly, Might Guy came running toward him at full speed. That's when he knew the peace and quiet was over for him. Kakashi shivered a little when he saw Guy. Ever since childhood, Guy had declared himself his rival. True, it was impressive for someone like him to graduate the academy without any jutsu whatsoever, but isn't that Might Guy? Obito asked, tilting his head to the right. I didn't know you had friends, Kakashi. He laughed, making Kakashi scowl at him. Might Guy? As in Might Dewey's son. Jiraiya asked, remembering the similar name. Didn't you realize that from the distinctive sense of fashion? Tsunade sighed. Or eyebrows? Kakashi! Guy yelled. Once he finally arrived in front of him, he grabbed his book and furrowed his brows at what he was reading. The Way a Shinobi Should Die? Guy asked, confused as he read the title. Oh Kakashi! Kushina sighed, shaking her head. Kakashi frowned at that. Give it back, he said as he quickly reclaimed his book. What's going on? With that, Guy remembered what he was there for in the first place. Oh yeah, the fourth Hokage was just announced. Guy gave him a thumbs up. Kakashi looked up from his book, a little surprised, which made Guy grin at his rival. Don't be so shocked, he said before announcing the name of the fourth Hokage. Minato-sensei was just named the fourth Hokage. And with that, Kakashi's eyes widened, filled with all kinds of emotions. He knew exactly how his sensei must be feeling. Cute, Tsunade said out loud, making Kakashi blush a little. He wasn't cute. Still, it's a little troubling that Kakashi still hasn't gotten over Obito's death after all this time. No one says not to forget the person who died, but mourning them forever isn't good for you either, Databane, Kushina said, looking at her hands. He knew exactly who he had to pass this message to. The next scene showed Kakashi placing some flowers on a grave. You won't believe this. Minato-sensei was named the fourth Hokage, Kakashi chuckled. Thanks for telling me. You didn't have to, but thanks. Obito smiled at Kakashi. Minato smiled at the two. It was so good to finally see them get along. But something still bothered him. Never in his life would he let something like that happen again. But there was no response. There always was no response. Well, I gotta go and tell Obito about it. I can't wait until we meet again someday. Kakashi whispered before walking toward the next grave. On the tomb, there was a familiar name written on it, Rin no Era. Once the screen turned black, the room filled with an excruciating silence. Rin wasn't even looking at the screen anymore. She had her head resting on her hands as she tried to take a few breaths. She died? But Kakashi made sure she got out of there alive. What? Obito yelled as he stood up. But how? No way. She got out of there alive. He clenched his fist. Obito, calm down, Minato said firmly, frowning at Obito's lack of control. He understood that this was a sensitive subject, but Obito had to learn that expressing emotions like this wasn't going to help anyone. No, I'm not going to calm down. Obito jumped from his seat, making Rin flinch at his sudden change of attitude. This wasn't the Obito she knew. Kakashi promised he would protect her. Why is she dead? Obito! Kushina gasped. This isn't Kakashi's fault, Minato said calmly. I want to know why she died. I didn't die just for her to die afterward. He continued, begging to get angrier. Obito, please. Just stop it, Rin said, making Obito pause and look at her. They stared at each other for a moment before Obito let out a cough and sat back down in his chair. Sorry. Obito mumbled. But Obito is right. Why did Rin die? I was in charge of protecting her, Kakashi began, but Rin interrupted, annoyance creeping into her voice. No, you weren't. I'm an independent person and I can protect myself, she asserted. It's quite ironic, actually. The hooded man began, drawing everyone's attention. Minato raised his brows. Why is that? He asked, but the figure remained silent. Oh, but Kakashi. Kushina looked at him with a sad expression. The only reason he was reading books like those was because his entire team had perished. He was likely traumatized. Thank you for sharing this with us, Obito said suddenly. Rin's eyes widened as she noticed his hands were shaking and tears were welling up in his eyes. Thank you. Now we can save everyone, he smiled through his tears. The hooded figure did not respond. Not everyone, he thought. It's pretty hard to digest that an entire team made up of kids could be lost just like that, Tsunade sighed. Everyone was still in shock from the previous scene. It was hard to accept the fact that Obito had died, but now Rin as well? We will get to that, but first, there are still some things I have to show you, the hooded man said, making the entire room straighten up and refocus on him. Kushina bit her lip, sensing that things were about to get worse. She wasn't the only one who could foresee that. From this point on, things would take a turn for the worse. These events take place 1 year after Minato was named Hokage, the man said before performing a now familiar jutsu. Today marked the day when Kushina finally agreed to visit the hospital for some checkups. She had been feeling unwell for the past few days. I'm sick? But I never get sick, Kushina thought, raising an eyebrow. Am I dying too now? Panic began to creep in. The scene opened with a surprised expression on Kushina's face as she received the results of her checkup. Huh, she murmured in shock. Your due date is. Let me check. Oh yes, October 10th, the doctor smiled at her. Kushina snapped out of her trance and beamed with joy. Oh thank goodness! Kushina exclaimed, standing up from her chair and laughing. With her hand on her heart, she sat back down. Kushina! Minato exclaimed with pure joy, immediately pulling his wife into a hug. The two of them laughed in each other's arms. Ah, congratulations, sensei. Rin smiled. She felt a bit awkward now, knowing they had just learned of her death. She understood that her presence brought guilt, but this was why they were here in the first place, to change that grim future. Kakashi smiled beneath his mask at his sensei. Finally, things were looking up. Obito could almost cry from happiness. He had always imagined his sensei as a father figure. He even considered him a father, which made this moment even more emotional. It felt like he was gaining a little brother, something he had never had. Tsunade and Jiraiya smiled at the couple, excited for the upcoming events they were about to witness. Fugaku seemed more relaxed, almost smiling at Minato before looking back at the screen. Later that day, Kushina returned home happily, greeted by her loving husband who was preparing lunch. Ever since the war officially ended, things had settled down. Being Hokage had never been easier for Minato. In fact, he even managed to get some time off, shamelessly trying to make it up to Kushina for all those late nights at the office. I knew it wouldn't be that hard, Minato said, waving his palm in front of his face. Tsunade shot him a look that was far from friendly, a look so familiar it made Jiraiya shiver. You do realize it just said you were home to make up for all those late nights, right? Tsunade asked, a hint of annoyance in her voice. Oh come on, Tsunade, I'm sure this wasn't the only late night Minato had to pull. I mean look at Kushina. She is PR'd in tea, Jiraiya laughed. Minato facepalmed while Kushina started to blush. She stood up and walked slowly toward Jiraiya. Tsunade stood up as well, and together they cracked their knuckles. Jiraiya gulped and tried to push his chair backward. Hey, it was just a joke, I swear. Jiraiya exclaimed, waving his hands in self-defense. Your life will be just a joke when we're done with you. Tsunade declared as she began to playfully punch Jiraiya. Everyone momentarily forgot about the scene on the screen, focusing instead on the light-hearted scuffle. As Minato prepared Kushina's favorite dish, the door suddenly swung open. He didn't bother to look at who just came through the door because he already knew who it was. Ah, so cute, Rin thought. Kushina finally finished using Jiraiya as a sparring partner and jumped back into her seat. She then took Minato's hand in hers and smiled, which he returned. Minato glanced at his sensei and gulped. Jiraiya was now sporting a colorful array of bruises from their playful exchanges. I'm home, she called out as she removed her shoes. Welcome back. Minato shouted back, ensuring she heard him. I went to the doctor today, she began, setting her bag down. Minato stopped mixing the ingredients and raised his brows. So, what did the doctor say? He asked, a hint of worry in his voice. Well, you won't believe this, but we're going to have a baby, Kushina exclaimed as she moved toward the kitchen. Before she could take more than a couple of steps, Minato stepped out from the corner, his eyes wide with surprise. Kushina smiled at the thought. This was a moment she had always dreamed about, a family. Let's just hope this child won't declare its ambition to become Hokage every 5 seconds, Jiraiya sighed, prompting Tsunade to laugh out loud and Fugaku to chuckle. Obito furrowed his brows at that. That was exactly what he did. A bee-baby? He stuttered, overwhelmed with a rush of emotions. He felt numb, unable to blink. I'm going to be a mother, Databane, Kushina announced proudly, placing her hand gently on her belly. And I'm going to be a father, Minato said, placing the bowl he was holding on the counter and stepping closer to Kushina, who now had tears of joy in her eyes. Now this is just adorable, Tsunade remarked, making Kushina blush and Minato smile even wider. I'm going to be a mother, Databane, she cried, taking another step forward. Can you believe this? I'm going to be a father, he exclaimed as Kushina leaped into his arms. They both shed tears of joy, holding each other tightly. Minato smiled and rested his chin on Kushina's head, kissing her forehead gently. But then Minato's expression shifted. He sighed, wishing the moment could have ended there, without revealing his doubts about the situation. He had a feeling Kushina sensed his unease. But why? Obito began, but was cut off by a loud yawn from Jiraiya. By now, the three Chunin understood that everyone in the room, except for them, was aware of what this was all about, and it was likely top-secret information. But that didn't stop him from wanting to know why his sensei looked worried. The next day, Minato received the report from Kakashi's mission regarding the documents he and his team had to transport to the hidden stone. Minato showed no reaction as he read the paper. "Ah, you look so cool in the Hokage cloak, Minato." Kushina giggled. Minato rolled his eyes and chuckled along with her. Of course, she would say something like that. Enemies defeated. Excessive chakra usage. Kakashi Hatake required immediate medical attention. "Oh well, you really messed up, didn't you, Kakashi?" Jiraiya laughed, causing the young shinobi's eyes to twitch. Kakashi was about to retort but then noticed Jiraiya's new bruised face and decided it was best to hold his tongue, considering the amount of playful punishment he had received from the two women earlier. "I see. Well, at least you completed the mission," Minato said, placing the paper on his desk. "You are all dismissed. Except you, Kakashi. I need to have a word with you," Minato stated as the temporary team dispersed. "I can't believe we're about to see Kakashi get scolded by the Hokage." "This is great," Obito said, grinning widely. "I have to admit, this is the first time I've seen Kakashi do so poorly on a mission." Rin giggled alongside Obito, only to further annoy Kakashi. "Sensei," Kakashi began to apologize, but Minato surprisingly smiled at him. "Kakashi, you've been quite reckless in your battles, haven't you?" Minato said lightly. Kakashi gulped and bowed his head. "I am very sorry," he said, clenching his fists and keeping his gaze on the floor. Obito's smile widened with every comment. It seemed he found satisfaction in watching Kakashi apologize to the Hokage for his actions. Usually, he was the one getting scolded, so this was a refreshing change for him. Minato sighed. "There is no need to apologize. It happens to the best of us from time to time. Just make sure you get proper rest," he advised. "What?" Obito exclaimed. This was completely unfair. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Why did he always get scolded while Kakashi only received a gentle reprimand? In his case, the third would lecture him for an hour and then he would go home to face Fugaku's scolding again. This was not fair. Obito glared at Kakashi, who was smiling victoriously. They both felt as if they were in a competition, and both were determined to win. "Of course. Kakashi, I've been thinking for a while, and I believe it's time to promote you to Anbu," Minato said with a smile. Kakashi's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? But sensei..." "Oh come on. Sensei." Obito whined, making Rin and Kakashi chuckle. "It's not fair. I wasn't promoted to Jonin because of my mistakes," he protested, crossing his arms. Minato laughed, rubbing the back of his head. Even he didn't fully understand what had just happened. "I want to place you under my command. I trust no one better than you, Kakashi. Not only that, but I also need someone to handle this important task for me." Kakashi couldn't believe his ears. He had almost failed a mission, and yet the Hokage chose to promote him to Anbu? This was unprecedented. You bet it's unprecedented. It's not even fair. Obito sulked in his seat. "You see, Kushina and I are expecting our first child," Minato announced with a grin. Kakashi blushed slightly and quickly congratulated his sensei. "Wait, so you're going to give this kid a mission of utmost importance right after he failed all those other missions?" "Minato, I'm starting to think that all the Hokage business has gotten to your head," Jiraiya said. Kushina turned towards Jiraiya, her hair floating around her, and he gulped. "Did you say something, Jiraiya-sensei?" she asked in a tone that made even Kakashi flinch slightly. "Nothing." Jiraiya laughed nervously. "That's what I thought." Minato was lost in thought, unsure of what to make of the situation. One thing was clear, he had not made his decision lightly. He turned to Kakashi with a big smile and thanked him, but then his expression shifted, signaling that what he was about to say was serious. But as you know, Kushina is a Jinchuriki. During a Jinchuriki's PRDSY, the energy used to contain the tailed beast is redirected for the child's development. I'm sure you understand what that means for the seal. Wait, what's a Jinchuriki? Obito asked, confused. Rin gasped, and Kakashi's eyes widened. Kushina was a Jinchuriki? Since when? Why hadn't they known about this? Silence fell over the group as they hesitated to address Obito's question. Kushina was reluctant to discuss it for obvious reasons. She didn't want to lose their respect. A Jinchuriki is someone who has a tailed beast sealed inside them. Konoha has one tailed beast, the fox demon known as the Nine Tails. They are not the beast itself but a person who keeps the beast sealed within to protect the village from its dangerous power, Kakashi explained. Obito remained quiet, his eyes wide with surprise as he looked at Kushina. He could sense her fear of speaking up. That's amazing. You're practically a hero, right? Obito exclaimed, his eyes sparkling. Kakashi and Rin smiled at Kushina, reassuring her that they thought highly of her. Kushina felt tears welling in her eyes. Minato smiled at his team, proud of them. It will break, Kakashi said, his eyes widening as he realized the implications. Minato nodded. But she's in luck. Kakashi, I want to give you a very important mission. To do that, you must accept becoming an Anbu. Will you do that? Wait. Obito interjected, waving his hands. So the Nine Tails could be released during that time? He asked, worried. That's right. The same thing happened to my grandmother when she gave birth. The seal weakens to the point of breaking during childbirth, Tsunade replied. Kushina began to worry. Things wouldn't escalate to that point, right? Kakashi gulped. He wanted to help his sensei, but he feared he might fail again. Hesitant, he finally nodded. Thank you, Kakashi. I still don't understand why Kakashi was chosen as an Anbu, Obito said, crossing his arms. Jealous. Kakashi smirked beneath his mask. As if. Obito shot back. Jealous? No way. Come on. Rin sighed, placing a hand on her forehead. Why did they always start a fight over trivial things? Couldn't they be serious for once? Her favorite couple was expecting a baby. Well, he has the brains for an Anbu, I agree with that, Tsunade said, glancing at Kakashi and then back at Obito. But traumas cannot be treated. It's something that only time and your own will can heal. From what I see, Kakashi wants to cling to the past, and he probably doesn't even realize it. Obito fell silent. It was probably better to keep his mouth shut. He was dead, after all, and not in a position to judge. The screen turned black before shifting to a new scene. This time, Obito decided to pay more attention. It was strange. All of them thought the same as they saw a hideout of some shinobi on the screen. The lights were dim, making it hard to see. A silhouette of a man emerged from the darkness. Though his face was obscured, his menacing aura was unmistakable. Another shadow appeared on the screen, revealing the man's face. Rin shifted uncomfortably in her chair, feeling unsettled by his unnaturally pale skin. It wasn't just his pallor that disturbed her. He had two faces, one white and one black. So, the other man asked, not bothering to turn around. There was something familiar about his voice, Obito thought. It was deep and sent shivers down his spine. Why did it sound so familiar? Did he know this guy? Just as you expected. The Jinchuriki is PRDNT, the white-faced man spoke. Kushina frowned. Why did they care about her PRDNCY? How did they find out? She was sure she hadn't announced it around the village, especially with Minato being Hokage. She wouldn't risk drawing attention from his enemies, nor would she endanger her baby. Who were they? The man turned around, revealing his white mask. It felt like he was smirking behind it. Yet, to Obito's surprise, there was something about him that seemed familiar. Perhaps it was his voice, posture, or mannerisms, but he was certain he recognized this man from somewhere. Finally, the man said, "The time has come." Who is he? Why is he after the Nine Tails? What's his motive? Minato pondered. Am I the only one who thinks his voice is familiar? Obito suddenly asked, drawing everyone's attention. Since hearing the man's voice, he couldn't shake the feeling that he knew him. The answer was just out of reach. Now that you mention it, Rin murmured, glancing back at the screen. I personally don't see anything special about him, Jiraiya shrugged. If anything, I'd say he's foolish for trying something like this. He clearly underestimates Konoha's power and Minato's abilities. And just as he said that, the only visible eye behind the mask transformed into a Mangekyo Sharingan, illuminating the dark room. Fugaku tried to mask his surprise upon recognizing the true identity of the newest villain. This was not good. This Uchiha, whoever he is, will definitely cause trouble not only for the village but also for the clan as well. Of course, on the other hand, Jiraiya said quietly, reconsidering his words. What's that pattern? Tsunade asked as she studied it more closely. Is that a Sharingan? Obito asked Fugaku. Yes. It's called the Mangekyo Sharingan. It is initially awakened by the trauma of witnessing the death of someone close to the user. However, Fugaku paused for a moment, deep in thought. What is it, uncle? Obito asked, feeling a bit anxious at his uncle's sudden silence. Everyone was listening intently. The Mangekyo is incredibly powerful, and as far as I know, there is no one in our clan who possesses such power. The only person I know who has unlocked this strength is Madara Uchiha. You don't say. I'm not certain, but from the looks of it, it's a possibility. No one knows for sure if he died or not. These days, no one unlocks the Mangekyo because of what you have to sacrifice to obtain it, Fugaku explained. Obito fell silent after those words. This person, whoever he is, must have suffered greatly to reach this point. But the young shinobi had one question. Who in the world is Madara Uchiha? You don't even know who Madara Uchiha is, do you? Kakashi suddenly asked. Obito laughed nervously, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Of course. His voice cracked. Really? You don't know? Rin asked, surprised. You're actually surprised? He used to sleep through all the history lessons. Kakashi rolled his eyes. Hey. He literally fought against the first Hokage kid. He built Konoha. This is basic knowledge. How could you not know? Jiraiya teased Obito. Oh, I don't want to hear it from you. Tsunade yelled. At his age, you thought the Hidden Leaf was the only shinobi village in the world and that we were fighting against citizens. Minato shook his head disapprovingly. It seemed like everyone had already forgotten what had been discussed, except for him and Fugaku, of course. 6 months later, back in Konoha, at the beautiful home of the Namikaze family, Jiraiya decided to visit the couple and bring a little gift for the upcoming parents. Jiraiya-sensei? Kushina's greeting turned into a question as her eyes fell on the basket the legendary Sannin carried. Good to see you, Kushina. I see everything is going well, Jiraiya laughed as he entered the apartment. Tsunade couldn't help but roll her eyes at Jiraiya's laugh. After so many years of working with him, she had come to realize that his laugh could drive anyone to the brink of insanity. Kushina's gaze fell on her future self's baby bump. Ever since she was little, she had dreamed of the moment she would have a baby of her own, and seeing herself finally reach that point made her feel emotional. Heading straight into the kitchen, Jiraiya placed the basket full of fruits on the counter. Kushina followed him. Oh wow, you must have spent a lot of money on these. Thank you so much for the gift, Kushina said, her face lighting up as she examined the contents. Don't worry about it, Jiraiya replied. I see being an author has its perks, she said, picking up a watermelon from the basket. Jiraiya chuckled at her words. Minato's in the living room. I'm sure he'll be glad to see you, Kushina informed him. So I decided to continue my writing career. Noted, Jiraiya said, nodding. There were many times he had questioned whether writing was truly for him, but finding relief in continuing his craft felt like a sign that it was the right choice. Jiraiya-sensei, what exactly are your books about? Rin asked, curious. Poor child, Tsunade thought. Well, my work currently consists of 4 books, believe it or not. 2 of which I'm still debating whether to publish, Jiraiya said, glancing at the screen and then back at Rin. But I think I have an answer. Jiraiya smiled, leaving Rin's question unanswered. Jiraiya exited the kitchen and saw Minato sitting at the table engrossed in a book. Upon closer inspection, Jiraiya realized that the book Minato was reading was, in fact, his own. "Oh!" Jiraiya exclaimed as he slapped Minato's back, startling him. "You were reading my Tales of a Gutsy Ninja, weren't you? But it's my first published work. The sentences are childish, and I didn't do a good job," Jiraiya admitted, rubbing the back of his head, feeling a bit embarrassed knowing Minato was a discerning reader. "You should be embarrassed about your new books, not that one," Tsunade said, shaking her head disapprovingly. "Does Tsunade herself actually read my books? What can I say? I'm honored. Honestly, I thought you were throwing them in the trash the moment I gave them to you." "What a little minx you are," Jiraiya winked at her, only to receive a fierce glare in return. "Your first book was all right. The plot was decent but not really my style, but I can't say I didn't find it entertaining. As for the other two, I stopped reading after the first chapter of each." To his surprise, Minato shook his head. "No, I don't think so. This tale is wonderful." Jiraiya knew his story had potential, but seeing Minato so excited over it and genuinely enjoying his work warmed his heart. "Oh? The main character of this book. I thought his determination to never give up was really admirable. He's a lot like you, sensei." Jiraiya wasn't surprised. He had envisioned himself as the main character when writing the story. "Which is why I'd like to name my son after him. I really hope my unborn child can become a ninja just like the main character," Minato said, making Jiraiya's eyes widen in shock. "Well, that took a different direction than what I was expecting," Obito mumbled. "So, we're having a son?" Kushina's eyes sparkled with joy. Minato smiled at her, placing his hand on top of hers. Maybe everything isn't going to be that bad after all. Everyone had smiles on their faces, except Fugaku. He never smiles. Jiraiya, on the other hand, wore a very nervous expression. Little did anyone in the room know just how he had named the main character. It would be better for both parties if they remained unaware of that tiny little fact. "Hey, are you sure?" Jiraiya stuttered. He named the main character while eating ramen, after all. He didn't want Minato to make a harsh decision. The main character's name was inspired by ramen? Kushina asked in a lower tone. Jiraiya couldn't help but gulp. So much for the element of surprise, he thought. Little did he know that Kushina had other thoughts than what he initially guessed. "That is amazing!" Kushina exclaimed as she began to nod. Minato chuckled a little. Not many knew about Kushina's obsession with ramen, so naturally, everyone in the room, except for Minato, reacted in a more typical way. "What?" they yelled, all except for Fugaku, who sat quietly, unbothered by the commotion. "Better not question it," Minato said. "Naruto. It's a beautiful name," Kushina said as she left the kitchen. She walked towards Minato and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Are you really sure about this?" If he had been alone when he received that news, he would have cried. "You're my sensei. And you are a great ninja who possesses true talent. There's no one else like you." And the screen turned black. "So wait, Jiraiya-sensei just became the child's godfather?" Obito asked. "A pretty foolish idea if you ask me," Tsunade clicked her tongue in disapproval. It wasn't like her opinion could change anything anyway. "Well, he is my sensei." Minato laughed nervously at Tsunade. He really didn't want to anger her. It was your choice. But don't be surprised if your child becomes a handful at 10. She shook her head. Jiraiya couldn't really defend himself because, well, it was true. "That was sweet," Rin smiled. "Now that it's over, we have a bigger problem to address. That man who possesses the Mangekyo, if he really is Madara, we're facing a very big problem," Fugaku finally spoke up. It seemed that he didn't care a bit about the lovely scenes from earlier. And it was true. After that Uchiha showed up, he couldn't stop thinking about him. He was a significant threat, not only for his clan but also for the village. Any sort of grin present earlier disappeared. Everyone seemed very tense. If that was truly Madara, Konoha could face war again. Agreed. But if Madara is still alive, how powerful could he really be at his age? Surely, an old man couldn't do much these days, Tsunade pointed out. Plus, if he truly was Madara, Why would he be waiting to destroy the village using the 9 tails? It seems rather strange that a man with his level of skill would need a tailed beast to destroy a village, Jiraiya continued. The 3 Chunin could do nothing but listen quietly to the entire discussion. They didn't really have any knowledge regarding Madara's strength. For them, Madara was a historical figure who was supposed to be dead decades ago. Maybe he isn't Madara, Minato said. What do you mean? There is no one who possesses the Mangekyo in the Uchiha clan at the moment. Fugaku furrowed his brows. True, not at the moment. But what about 1 year later? We have to take into consideration that these events are in the future, after the current war. There is no telling what happened between those time skips. I just find it strange how the war ended and then Madara decides to appear. Why not strike when the village is at its weakest? Minato's words really sank in. Everyone began to see the situation with a more open mind. One thing is certain, things are about to get serious again, Tsunade said quietly, and the others agreed. Kushina, on the other hand, didn't dare to say anything. She didn't want to think about what could possibly happen. She wanted to see herself being the mother she always dreamed of being, not to leave her child alone in the world. Everything that I'm showing you has a purpose. The mysterious man joined the conversation. These memories contain details that will serve a purpose in the future memories that you'll see. Keep in mind that whatever I'm showing you will not happen if you do not repeat the same mistakes. Little did they know that the man was looking in Obito's direction. As the others continued to strategize about that Mangekyo user, Kushina began to drift away from reality and found herself in her subconscious, right in front of the 9 Tails gate. She was a little startled at first but quickly regained her composure. What is it that you want? I'm busy as you can see, she said through clenched teeth. The 9 Tails, however, did not respond right away. Only after a few moments did he begin to speak. I wasn't planning on mentioning this to you, but it disturbs me too much not to say a word about it, he began. As the others continued to talk, Minato looked in Kushina's direction and saw that she wasn't moving much. Kushina? He asked. Everyone looked at her almost immediately. Kushina came back to reality. She looked at the others with wide eyes and then immediately focused on the man who was hiding his identity with the help of his long cloak. She hesitated at first to speak up, but then she broke the silence. Care to explain why you possess the 9 tails?